he will be a staff for the righteous with which for them to stand and not to fall. And he will be the light of the nations and the hope of those whose hearts are troubled. All who dwell on the earth will fall down and worship him, and they will praise and bless and celebrate with song the Lord of spirits. 1 Enoch chapter 48, verses 4 through 5. The modern world doesn't acknowledge, but is nevertheless haunted by spirits, angels, demons, and saints. In our time, many yearn to break free of the prison of a flat, secular materialism, to see and to know reality as it truly is. What is this spiritual reality like? How do we engage with it well? How do we permeate everyday life with spiritual presence? Orthodox Christian priests Father Andrew Stephen Damick and Father Stephen DeYoung host this live call-in show focused on enchantment in creation, the union of the seen and unseen as made by God and experienced by mankind throughout history. Welcome to the Lord of Spirits.
Well, greetings, dragon slayers and giant killers. I don't know why, but you're listening to the 146th episode of Lord of Spirits podcast.
You don't know why they're listening, or you don't know why it's the 146th episode?
I don't know why they're listening. I do know why it's 146. It's because we've already done 145. And
okay. And when you say you don't know why they're listening, are you just acknowledging the vast variety of reasons? So you don't know anyone in particular? Or are you saying you see no reason at all?
I see no reason for them to waste their lives on this program.
You're the guy who's supposed to do the self-promotion, man.
Nevertheless, I'm trying to balance it off a little bit. Just a little bit. Yeah, so, that being said, I am Father Andrew Stephen Damick, and I am ensconced in the palace of podcasting in the wilds of Raleigh, North Carolina, and you are Father Stephen DeYoung, deep, deep in the fetid swamps of Lafayette.
Just me, not all the listeners who just heard that.
That's right.
You.
I'm just talking to you.
I'm not Spartacus, right? Like, we're not all Father Stephen DeYoung.
I think we should try that sometime, though. I'd like all the callers to call in and introduce themselves as Father Stephen DeYoung.
I am Father Stephen DeYoung.
Okay. Well, we are live. We are taking callers. So starting the second half, Mike walks into a bar. Man, DeGan will be taking your calls, and we're hoping that you call in with your dreams.
Hold on a second before we go any further.
Yeah.
This is a rare moment of sincerity, though I'm also deliberately trying to anger a bunch of tedious people. Memory eternal to Peter Cullen. Yeah. Yes, everyone. I just said memory eternal to a Roman Catholic. Deal with it. Deal with it.
Well, actually, I recently saw, this will help make some more people mad, because there's this idea out there, since you brought it up, Father, that there is some rule written somewhere saying you may not say memory eternal about people who are not Orthodox Christians. And I have never seen that rule written anywhere. I've never heard it from the mouth of any bishop. I've never seen.
That's what I was saying. That's why I was saying they're tedious people.
I know. That's what what I did see recently, actually, and this is real. This is true. You can look this up on the interwebs. That there actually is a pastoral instruction from Saint John Maximovich of Shanghai and San Francisco, the great 20th century saint, in which he stipulated how you can commemorate non-Orthodox people, and he includes singing. Are you ready? Memory eternal. So someone didn't give him a copy of these rules either, it would seem.
Yes. So yes, if it makes you mad, I don't care. Stay mad.
Yeah. Also, so memory eternal, Dolly Parton and Tim Curry.
Yeah.
As well.
But Peter Cullen is the one that hurts.
The voice of Eeyore?
The voice of Eeyore, the voice of Optimus Prime. Everything.
Yep. Yep. I mean, he's got a heck of a voice. God bless him.
And he did a ton of other voices too. I mean, all kinds of stuff. But that's like,
yep.
See, those of you who aren't Gen X don't know, but as we're getting old, our childhood is slowly dying.
That's right.
That's one of the many reasons we're so bitter and grumpy and disaffected all the time.
I mean, that's a perfect segue for me to quote Shakespeare here, which I was already planning to do, but I hadn't figured out how to get it in.
That you could consider yourself the Lord of infinite space. Oh no,
that's King of Infinite Space.
King of whatever.
Yes, no. You were talking about death. That sleep of death. What dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause.
See, I was translating back from the Greek translation of Shakespeare's works.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, actually, it looks like some people in the YouTube chat are just now receiving the news about the voice of Optimus Prime.
Oh, they didn't know about Peter Cullen?
Well, it's good that
sorry
they
to have to let you know about
Steven.
that.
Yeah. A sympathetic voice,
Like I was tempted that re-releasing Transformers the movie in theaters. But there's like no way I'm going to publicly watch the scene where Optimus Prime dies anytime soon.
Would you blubber like a little girl?
I'm not saying I would. Not saying I wouldn't.
People are going to start canvassing the theaters in Lafayette, Louisiana to see if they can catch you doing it.
Yeah. No, yeah. I'll admit, like, people may not know about this, but so after why is his name gone from my brain? Batman and Batman the Animated Series.
Alan West. No, not the animated series. That's the original Batman.
Yeah. Man, I'm off my game already.
Off the top of my head.
Who is like arguably the greatest Batman of all time.
Out of many Batmen.
Yes. But anyway, let's pause to the chat. Like right after, it'll come to me when I'm not thinking about it.
Okay.
See, I'm an old man. But right after he passed away, like they released a DC animated movie of Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is like his last voice performance. And it's like him doing Batman, and Batman dies in it and like gives his last. It's like, why are you doing that to people? Like, that's not just Gen Xers, that's millennials getting cut off at the knees.
Apparently Kevin Conroy.
I had the Kevin and I couldn't remember his last name. Yeah.
Animated series.
Kevin Conroy, like right after he passed away, they released that, and it's just like hearing him say,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I all that being said, I did hear a rumor earlier this afternoon that this episode was brought to us by the fevered dreams of AI, that this episode is an AI hallucination. Is that true?
Not really.
Not really. Oh, okay.
This is, however, the Lord of Spirits episode in which AI was the most involved.
Should we just let people speculate as to what exactly that means?
No, I'll tell them.
Okay.
And based on then subsequent experience, this is the most it will ever be involved.
It seems likely.
So here's how AI was involved in the production of this episode. I typed into my browser, which goes to Google, on my phone, what should Lord of Spirits make an episode about? And the Google AI response was dreams, after it scanned Reddit and stuff. That's it. That's all it was. But
that's all.
So yeah. So that. But then, so when I told you that, you put into the same AI, like, okay, they're doing What About Dreams? What should they do next? And it was the topics they gave after it were just complete slop.
Yeah, just garbage remixes.
Just absolute junk. So it was like, this is a one-off. So if you're
right.
super hung up on AI, right, it is now useless to us, apparently. Like, this suggesting a Dreams episode is the most we will ever get out of an LLM. So...
Well,
you're at least safe from AI from now on.
Were people having dreams back in Genesis or in Chetelhoyuk or, some Doug McClure?
No,
movie?
Dreams started in the 19th century.
I knew it, with Germans.
No, Germans go around stomping out people's hopes and dreams. So,
19th century Germans.
Sorry, German listeners, but
I think the closest we have right now, at least that has sounded off in the chat, is we have one Danish listener, which of course that is not Germany, but it is Germanic.
Well, but if you're Germanic and not German, then the Germans keep trying to take your country. So
that is true. Quite true.
Quite true. Speaking as a Dutchman, we could take our verbal jabs here and there. Okay, guys? Like you're tough. You can handle it. Yeah. So obviously dreams have been around as long as humans have. And apparently dogs
have been as around as long as dogs.
Well, I mean, because dogs, I don't know if you know this, but dogs very clearly have dreams.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And certain dogs, like right now, I'm in southern Louisiana. It is August. My mother is intelligent, and so she's with the family in Minnesota. Right? So we've got her dog in addition to our dogs, and her dog dreams all the time. Like anytime that dog is asleep, she'll be like laying on her side, and you see like her paws twitching, like she's running, and she makes little noises and stuff. So, yes. So technically, I guess, regardless of your view of creation, right? Like even if you're going for literal 6th 24-hour day, dogs would have been created earlier in the day than humans.
Oh, that is true. Yeah.
As land animals. So that's why I say not only been around as long as humans, they've been around at least as long as dogs. And I don't know. I'm sure someone will post somewhere about what other animals dream. Like there's probably some kind of bird or fish or something that dreams that was around the day before or the period before or whatever you think. And so somebody will post that. I'm sure it'd be like, actually. So the question isn't so much like, when did people start having dreams? So I don't know why you asked it, but what are they? What do they mean, if anything? What's going on when people have dreams? And so this is one of those where, as much as I like to go back to the Chalcolithic period, right, and get into prehistory, we can't really get into prehistory too much in terms of the human understanding of dreams, because there's kind of no way to get at that until we have language. Right. Written language, I mean, and texts that we actually still have. But we could say some things in terms of the ancient Near East, in terms of the earliest layer of written history that we have, and how they understood dreams. And so, as we've said on the show before, when we've commented on dreams sort of briefly, dreams were seen as a means of entrance into the spiritual world. But we have to, and this is a little bit of review from what we've talked about in the past, but we have to talk a little bit about what that means, right? Because a lot of people's view of what the spiritual world is kind of skewed. Right?
Yeah. You might get this idea of like astral projection, or being transported to some other place,
dimension or realm, or, the astral plane. Some kind of thing. The astral plane, by the way, is just the sphere that the stars are in. That's what astral means. Astral means stars.
Man, illusion dist.
But sorry, old time Art Bell listeners.
That's the origin of the word disaster, by the way, which is something that is against the stars.
Yes. Bad stars. Yeah.
You've been dissed by the stars.
I think the problem is not in our stars, but in ourselves, personally.
Nice. But, thank you.
So that's not the way it was understood by ancient people. That's not the way the scriptures talk about it. That's not the way the church has traditionally understood the spiritual world. And the ancient understanding and the church's understanding is more like that the spiritual world is an overlay. And the metaphor I have used for this in the past that is getting increasingly dated and unwieldy and not understood by a lot of the audience is an overhead projector, which a lot of you have never seen.
I know.
So with transparencies, but I'm working on cobbling together a new one based on visual effects, because visual effects, digital effects, have layers.
That's true. CGI.
Like ogres and onions, right? So look at it that way, right? You have a layer, which is a person in front of a green screen, right? And then you layer in things behind them, right? And
or what are those, what do they call when you, it's not Google Glass anymore. Now there's some other kind of, like, glasses that add, enhancements to your vision or whatever. They add, an overlay. It's like,
the whole AR thing. And yeah, we're sounding increasingly old, I imagine. Like, there's just Zoomers cringing left and right who are hearing this out there. But,
I mean, I don't have one of those sets of glasses, but
yeah, I'm sure though we're just like way out of anyway. So
it's okay. Old man yelling at cloud is your final form.
Yes. So I am soon to achieve it. So I wish there were clouds right now here in Southern Louisiana. So it's not that there is this other place, this other realm, this other dimension of the spirit. It's that the spiritual world is overlaid over the material world that we interact with every day. We just mostly don't see it. Now, we've talked before on the show, we've done a couple of episodes talking about this in detail, that the nous is the faculty by which humans perceive it. And how in the process of theosis, the process of salvation, our nous is purified to allow us to accurately see the spiritual world. We've given the example of Elisha's servant who has his eyes open, and so he sees the angelic host around him, right? It's not that they suddenly show up around him, it's just they were there and he couldn't see them, right? So it's that idea. And so the spiritual world and the material world are all part of the same creation. They're all together. It's just we generally perceive and interact with the material rather than the spiritual, at least directly. But the material and spiritual worlds, as we've said before on the show, are constantly interacting with each other, right? So things we do in the material world in a completely material sense still have spiritual effect and spiritual repercussions, right?
Yeah.
Easy example, Christ says you give a glass of cool water in his name to a little one, right? That is purely the water is material water, right, in the cup of a certain temperature, one human giving it to another human, but there is immense spiritual significance and significance in the spiritual world of that event, right? So things aren't isolated to one or the other. There's a constant interplay between the two. And so when we say entrance into the spiritual world, we don't mean that they thought that when you went to sleep, like your spirit left your body and went to another place, right?
Yeah. It's now you're the language is your eyes being opened, you're seeing more of what there is.
Right. And so you are, because your eyes are closed, you're not thinking with your conscious mind, right? Your nous is interacting sort of directly with noetic beings and noetic reality. That kind of idea. And we've talked, I know that in and of itself is a weird concept. If you've never heard of it, if this is your first episode, sorry. But we have a couple of past episodes on the nous where we go into that in like super detail. But so what that means a little more concretely is that for ancient people, including the ancient Near East, this earliest layer, that meant that in dreams you would encounter gods, spirits, demons, right? Agentic beings with agency, right? Beings who are not you, separate from you, right? Another being. You would encounter them in dreams. And these would be beings that inhabit the spiritual world. Now that includes, by the way, the ancient Near East, deceased humans.
Yeah.
Right. So, in addition to encountering beings that we would categorize as noetic beings, you would also encounter, right, departed human spirits potentially in dreams, in their understanding. Now, the ancient Near East, as today, right, most dreams were generally, for the vast majority of people, perceived as being a passive thing. Right. So it wasn't that you enter the spiritual world in the sense that, like, you yourself had some kind of new agency while you were asleep in that realm that you didn't have while you were awake. It was just you were perceiving it and mentally interacting with it in a different way. And so it was still, dreams were primarily seen as a passive experience. You receive a dream, right? A dream would be given to you, right? In this kind of understanding. But there were then, as now, people who did lucid dreaming, either accidentally or on purpose. And in the ancient world, those people who did the lucid dreaming ended up being some kind of religious functionary. In that the fact that they did that sort of made them qualified automatically to be some kind of prophet or seer or other functionary. But that was then, as now, sort of a minority of people. So, as I just mentioned, the idea of dreams, both receiving them and being able to sort of actively deal with them, was seen as part of the general phenomenon of prophethood, of being a prophet, of prophecy.
Yeah.
And we also have an old past episode, I think it's called Prophet Motive.
Prophet Motive.
Because that was super clever. If I do say so myself. I think I came up with that. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. I'm taking credit for it now. This is Father Andrew Erasure. It's a.
I think so. Yeah. Well, yes, it happens all the time. It happens all the time. It's good for my humility, probably, but not for yours.
Yeah, I'm a lost cause. So it's within, right, the receiving of dreams, the interpreting of dreams, the deliberate seeking of dreams, is a phenomenon within the overall phenomena of prophethood. And it was seen in the ancient world, though, as a secondary tier of prophethood. So the primary tier of prophethood, as we talk about in that episode, was that the prophet was someone who had had a very direct personal encounter with a divine being. Right. So obviously, in the context of Scripture, that's with God, right? The God of the Bible, right? The true God. In the case of pagan prophets, that would be some other spirit, right? Deity in question that we would see as having been a demon. So that was the primary tier of prophecy. And that corresponded to visions. There's a difference between a vision and a dream, right? a vision is an encounter in which the person who is receiving the vision is still active. So think of the book of Revelation, right? St. John it doesn't fall asleep and then sort of passively receive the contents of Revelation, right? He is awake, he is in worship, and he enters into this vision. And throughout the vision, he's asking questions. He's interacting with Christ, with angels, with different beings, right? He's going to different places, right? So he is an active participant. You compare that to even biblical cases that we're going to talk about in the second half, of people receiving dreams. Like within the dream, they're not active. They're passive. They receive the dream.
Yeah. Sort of observers.
Right. Yeah. And so that primary tier of prophethood being about this kind of direct visionary encounter is why, as we mentioned in that episode, the earliest terms in Semitic languages for prophets was not the words that now get translated prophet, but the earliest tier refer to them as seers. Literally seers, people who see.
Yeah.
Right? Because they have these visions. So dreams are secondary because of that, because they're passive, and also because dreams require then this extra layer of interpretation. Right? In a direct encounter, for example, again, going to St. John in the book of Revelation, no S, St. John will see something and he'll ask, what is this? Or what does this mean? Or when will this right? And that gets explained to him, right? So that's like included within the vision because he's an active participant. Whereas most other biblical examples of dreams, right? Someone then has to come and interpret the dream. Right.
Yeah. Daniel and, or Joseph. I mean, there's. Yeah.
And so not just the receiving of dreams, but the interpretation of dreams is also this role that the prophet plays, right?
Yeah,
that's
clearly
also
not everybody can do it. And there's no
right.
manuals. You just look something up.
Yeah. And someone being able to do it, as you see in a lot of the biblical examples, someone being able to do it marks them out as having this spiritual gift, right?
Yeah.
And so, so because of that, sorry, Pajot, but in the ancient Near East,
wow,
they didn't understand
the
dreams.
World's second greatest Canadian there.
French Canadian, second greatest French Canadian.
Wow.
We got to narrow it in, right? Respect his heritage. But they didn't see it in terms of symbolism in that sense you just described, right?
Yeah.
There wasn't sort of a universal vocabulary of dreams or of symbols within dreams, right? Where somebody could just write a guide so that anybody could do it. The interpretation was seen as itself being a kind of visionary or prophetic act.
Yeah.
Rather than as a sort of scientific endeavor, right? Where you're decoding it, right? That wasn't how dreams were understood in the ancient Near East, at least, right? So this interpretation of dreams is one type of divination. We've talked about various types on the show at different times, like ecstopy, reading entrails of sacrificial animals. This one is oneromancy. Oneromancy.
There we go. Try that at your next party, kids. Your next young adult gathering.
Try oneromancy or just
no. Try the word. Try on the word. Okay. Try on the word.
Promoting divination, Lord of Spirits. And so, so that is treating the interpretation of dreams as divination, right? As a way of foretelling the future in a way that allows you to make wise decisions in the present. And you can probably think of some, right off the top of your head, some biblical examples of that, right? And as we mentioned, right, we can only go back with dreams, really, and understanding to the human writing. But we have examples of texts related to oneromancy, the interpretation of dreams, going all the way back to the library at Mari. So we're talking about circa 3000 BC.
Where's Mari?
In Mesopotamia.
Mesopotamia. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, as far back as we have written texts, right?
Yeah.
Some of the earliest ones we have are about oneromancy, right? So this points to this being a very early phenomenon. Also, interestingly, this is one of relatively few places where, when you look at the earliest Egyptian texts and the earliest Mesopotamian texts, they're virtually identical. In terms of early, like, dream divination stuff.
Strongly suggesting common source or common experience, or this is just what
they're growing out of the same thing. Yeah. So that basically tells us that because those two civilizations, by the time they develop writing, are still so similar, that it's something that goes well back into human prehistory. And prehistory just means there's no written records.
Yeah.
That's what history and prehistory mean.
Right.
If that needs to be clarified. Prehistory, the prehistoric does not mean cavemen necessarily. Right?
This means before writing. Yeah.
Prehistory just means before writing, before we have any written account to go on. So it goes well back into human prehistory. And so within these texts, there is a distinction between, and there's several distinctions we're going to make here along the way, but this is the first one, between induced and spontaneous dreams. Okay. Spontaneous dreams are most of the dreams you've ever had.
Yeah, you go to sleep, you have a dream. And so, by the way, kids, if you say, well, I don't dream, then that means you are probably psychotic. Or
you just don't remember them.
You don't remember your dreams, right? Yeah. You got to dream if you don't want to be utterly psychotic.
Yes. Don't diagnose people with psychosis.
I'm just saying.
We got some of those WebMD folks out there who are going to be like,
right. But the kind of dream, spontaneous dreams, it's the dreams you just have when you're going to sleep. I mean, this is what most of us are having, these kind of dreams.
Right. Those are spontaneous dreams, but then there are induced dreams or voluntary dreams, right? Which is much rarer. But in the case of the ancient Near East, what we're talking about with this is not like, oh, I'm going to sleep and I hope that I dream of my sweetheart, right? That's not what we mean. This is drinking stuff.
Or right. Inhaling stuff.
Eating stuff, inhaling stuff, swallowing stuff that will knock you out and cause you to see stuff.
Right, doing drugs. That's basically hallucinogenics.
Yes.
Yeah. The wacky tobacco.
Yes. So that's what that is, right? And there's lots of examples of both, right? Very early on, humans figured out different ways to intoxicate themselves. And before that, they probably just hit their head against a rock a bunch of times. I don't know. But so that was a thing, right? And so, but in terms of oneromancy, right, that would be a way that someone who was like, okay, I'm seeking some bit of knowledge or wisdom or something about the future from the gods. Okay, come here, drink this, right? They go on a trip, right? And then tell the religious functionary what they saw, right, in their hallucination. That gets interpreted to them, and that's the information they wanted, right? So that's what we're on a very practical level. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about induced dreams. So we're going to talk about a couple of texts now from the ancient Near East that give examples of some of these things. First one is one that probably everybody listening to this at least has heard of for sure, and that's the Epic of Gilgamesh. I don't know if everyone in the world has heard about it, but if you're listening to this show, you probably have. So the Epic of Gilgamesh, we're not going to go into a whole bunch of detail about it. Maybe we'll do an episode about it at some point. But there's really a whole bunch of dreams in it, but there are basically three headings, three sets of dreams that we could talk about. The first one happens right away in the first tablet, and that's Gilgamesh after he gets thrown out of Uruk for trying to spend the wedding night with everybody's wife. That went over then about as well as it would go over now as a suggestion from a government official.
Right.
He gets thrown out of town, so he's all alone, but he has a dream that he will find a friend. He will find a close friend to accompany him, of course. If you know anything about the Epic of Gilgamesh, that ends up being Enkidu. That dream, but so he has the dream, and then that dream is interpreted to him by his mother, who, by the way, is a goddess, named Ninsun. So you see already with that first dream, this idea that even Gilgamesh, who we've been told is 2/3 divine, can't sort of interpret his own dreams. Even though that dream is a revelation from the spiritual forces, he requires an interpreter, and that's, a goddess who comes and interprets it for him. So the second set of dreams, these are good examples of induced dreams. So Gilgamesh and Enkidu are on their way to Lebanon, literally, in the story, to the cedar forests of Lebanon. And there they're going to face the mighty Humbaba, who is this giant, monstrous creature. And so while they're on the way, Gilgamesh is kind of trying to prep for the fight, right? And so every time they come upon a mountain, a high place, Gilgamesh goes up to the top and he offers sacrifices to Shemesh,
sun
right?
god.
The sun god.
Yeah.
And he eats, drinks something involved with the sacrifice and asks for a dream. And in each case, the dream is very obviously bad. They're all about how terrible Humbaba is and how, Humbaba's probably going to kill Gilgamesh in the fight, like literally kill him, right? But interestingly, in the narrative, every time he has one of these dreams, Enkidu spins it. Enkidu's like Mick in his corner, right? He's like, no, you got this, man. You got it, bro. You could do it. You could do it. And sort of reinterprets whatever the dream was to be like, no, seeing him eat the world means that you're going to win, So this is interesting for a couple of reasons, not just for that little bit of verisimilitude of your buddy trying to pump you up right before this fight, but it shows how, number one, even though all those are bad, Humbaba ends up getting killed. And Gilgamesh and Enkidu do actually win. So those kinds of omens and oracles and dreams were not at least completely fatalistic, right? You could reverse that somehow. And you could kind of see this element of, obviously interpreters can give you different interpretations. And motivated people will probably give you positive interpretations no matter what. This will be important when we talk about some biblical examples, like why somebody would say, no, dream interpreter, I'm not telling you what my dream was. You tell me what my dream was and then interpret it.
Right.
Because otherwise, like, oh, here's my dream. Oh, here's what you want to hear. Right. So it's also a good example of, right, these induced dreams. And then the third set of dreams, a little darker, are a couple of dreams that Enkidu has later on in the epic, where the first one, Enkidu has this dream where he enters into the Council of the Gods, right? And this is at a certain stage in the Mesopotamian pantheon. So Enlil is the big cheese. But Shemesh is there, and all these other Mesopotamian gods are there, and they're kind of arguing and deliberating. They've decided that because they killed the bull of heaven, either Gilgamesh or Enkidu has to die, one of the two, and they're sort of arguing over which one. And because Gilgamesh's family, right, largely, everybody's leaning toward Enkidu, but then certain gods are trying to intercede and be like, oh, no, but Enkidu also, did some good stuff too, But finally they decree, the ultimate result of this dream that Enkidu has is he becomes aware of the fact that the gods have decreed that he's going to die beforehand. And then to sort of add insult to injury, he has another dream, and in that dream he sees like the horrors of Sheol, of the underworld, of where he's headed and how terrible it is, right? So then in the story, he dies. Mesopotamian religion, not a super positive, uplifting religion.
No.
Kind of about grim determination, like Dutch Calvinism. But so he has this these dreams. He ends up then dying and actually going into the netherworld, and that's what within the epic, that's what then causes Gilgamesh to freak out and decide that he needs to become immortal so that won't happen to him. Right. So the Epic of Gilgamesh is not really a story about character growth. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's when he goes and he seeks out Utnapishtim to try to learn the secret of immortality. But there, with Enkidu's dreams, you see a couple of things. You see specifically his are not so much related to divination as they're related to him entering the spiritual world, him sort of directly seeing albeit passively, seeing the spiritual world around him, right? The state of the dead and these deliberations in the Council of the Gods, right? In his dreams. So the Epic of Gilgamesh, people have heard about, probably read in some lit class in college or something. But maybe you didn't focus so much on dreams per se. I wager a lot fewer of you have heard of what's called popularly now the Assyrian Dream Book, less popularly by its Akkadian title, the Ishkar Zakiku.
I think that isn't that in the book stacks at Walmart these days.
I think it's under Assyrian Dream Book, not under Ishkar Zakiku. It's actually more
available now in paperback,
but you gotta get the Q. You gotta get the back of your throat.
Yeah, the cough.
Yeah. And so Ishkar means basically book. Zakiku is the Akkadian word for a spirit or a ghost. And so someone might ask, so then why isn't it called the Assyrian Ghost Book? Right? Or the Assyrian Spirit Book? Well, Zakiku is not only the word for a spirit or ghost, it's also the proper name of the god of dreams. Sandman, Morpheus, as it were. Anyway.
What if I told you?
Yeah, no, not that Morpheus. So there is, you could see just in that connection, the fact that that is both the word for a ghost or a spirit and the name of the god of dreams, that there's this perceived connection between the world of spirits, the world of ghosts, and dreams, right?
Yeah.
That those are connected, right, in terms of that worldview. And it dates from the Assyrian period. That's why it's the Assyrian dream book instead of like the Babylonian dream book. Although most people think that what's in the text wasn't original to the text, that it's kind of a compilation. Because essentially what this book is, and it's tablets, but what this book is sort of a series of diagnoses and cures. It's like the DSM negative 14, I guess, specifically for dreams. And so the diagnosis part is that there's a long list of different things you can dream about. And this isn't the same as the kind of symbolic approach I was saying they don't take, because it's not like, okay, so in your dream, the man was wearing blue. Well, blue represents this, and the fact that it was a man and not a woman represents that, and da-da-da-da-da. It was much more vague than that.
Yeah.
Right. It was much more general. So here is an actual example. And this tells you, again, something about Assyrian culture, if you don't already know. If you had a dream about eating human flesh, and who hasn't, but, you know, if you have a dream about eating human flesh, that means wealth is coming your way.
Yeah. I mean,
that is an actual example.
Yeah, that's very, you know, it's very giant lore kind of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, right. So it's that kind of thing, right? You dream about flying, that means this is going to happen. So it's very much like omens.
Yeah.
Right? The way they would look at, like, oh, you saw a raven, you know, a raven landed on your housetop. That means this is going to happen, right? So it's more in that omen level, right, of understanding. And so then that's sort of on the diagnosis side. And then the cures part. Now, obviously, if you're dreaming about even eating human flesh, that's great, because now that means you've got wealth coming, right? No problem there if you're an Assyrian. But if you have some other dream that means something negative, like something bad is going to happen to you or your family, like you're going to lose all your wealth, then you want a cure for that, right? You want some procedure, something to do to prevent that from happening, right? And so that's the cures part. That's the make these sacrifices, do this ritual, yada, 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 right? And then whatever it was that your dream prophesied would happen will not actually take place, right? So that's really the contents. That's the contents of the text of the Assyrian Dream Book. But so there are a few interesting things to say also within the book and its treatment. One of those is that the Assyrian Dream Book acknowledges three different types of dreams. Okay. And so one of those is what we were talking about. One type of dream is a message from a god or a spirit or a demon or something, right? Some kind of spiritual being is communicating something to you through a dream. Okay, so that's one category. Another category, as we've already talked about, is predictive dreams. You have a dream that's predicting something that's going to happen in the future, right? So that you can either run towards it or avoid it, right? Although, but then the third category...
I'll just say, in many cases, though, you get the prediction, and trying to avoid it is what makes it happen. I mean, if you find yourself in a Greek play, for instance...
Yeah. Well, irony is so ironic sometimes.
Yes, exactly.
So, but then the third type of dream is what we could call internal dreams, meaning it acknowledges that some dreams are just something going on in your own head.
Yeah.
Or heart.
It's not right. Indicative of something else. Yeah. It's not saying it's unimportant or that it's not real or that it's not spiritual. It's just you. It's just
yeah. It's not connected to the future. It's not connected to any spirit. It's just something going on with you. Right? But that's important to note. Okay, so because a lot of times this gets presented as if ancient people, they thought dreams were these mystical things all the time. And, now we know, right? No, they acknowledged that a lot of, maybe even most dreams were just sort of internal, you're worried about X. And so you had a dream about X, people in ancient times were just as smart as people today.
Huh.
What stopped them from having microwaves in the ancient Near East was not that they were dumber than us, right? Because guess what? 99% of the people listening to this could not make a microwave. Okay? The reason they couldn't make microwaves in the ancient Near East is because a whole bunch of other things had to be discovered and invented first before you could make a microwave. And that hadn't happened yet.
Yep.
So, but they were just as smart, right? If someone went back in time and explained it all to them, they could make microwaves, right? Just as well as we can. So they understood that, right? They understood that. That's not like some new thing. That's not a disenchantment or a, demythologizing of the world. Like, they understood that too. Where that other stuff comes in is when you deny the other two categories, right? We'll talk more about that later, right? But they acknowledged that there were some that were just sort of internal to the person. And this is an interesting little note. I should make Father Andrew read this so he can pronounce all the Akkadian words.
I mean, all the Canadians, was that a Freudian slip? All the Akkadians can write in and correct our pronunciation.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but I live surrounded by Akkadians, Father Andrew.
Well, there's Akkadians and then there's Akkadians.
This is Akkadiana.
Yes. Not to be confused with Akkad.
Yes. But, so one of the things you see in the Assyrian Dream Book is there's an enumeration of a bunch of different sort of religious functionaries who were involved in dream interpretation and stuff within the Mesopotamia, the mid first millennium BC Mesopotamian world. And it gives you the Akkadian names for them, and they kind of distinguish these as being subtly different things. So a Sheilu, which literally means like a listener or an asker of questions, right? That was the title for someone who specializes in interpreting dreams. Because the idea was they would, I guess, actively listen to you recount your dreams. And then an astrologer, somebody who was dealing with divination vis-a-vis the stars and planets, was a Tupsharu. A Mahuam. Sorry, Pentecostals. You're going to get grumpy here. But there were religious functionaries called Mahuam who basically would use rhythmic drumming and other techniques to place themselves in an ecstatic state in which they would make ecstatic utterances, which would be interpreted as messages, as spiritual messages.
The Toronto blessing, as it were.
I didn't say that. Father Andrew said that. Not saying I don't agree with it, but I didn't say it, technically. Let the record show. Yeah. And then, so the words ragimu and ragitu, mu and tu are the masculine and feminine endings. That's a prophet or a prophetess. A beru was a diviner, and that's really, in this case, because we've had a bunch of different types of divination, that's really mostly a haruspex. Haruspex is the Latin word. That means somebody who reads the entrails, sacrificial animals. And finally, the ashipu was an exorcist.
Nice.
And so, but as we say that, right, exorcism for a Mesopotamian, right, was a little different than Christian exorcism or Jewish exorcism before that, for that matter.
Yeah, wasn't it more like bring in good spirits to drive out bad spirits? Bring in good demons to drive out bad demons? From my point of view.
Yes. Or just get one to buzz off.
Right.
Warding off different, right. And we've talked about different, especially in some of the Halloween episodes, we talked about like Liltu or Lilith, right? Yeah. Some of these different, they were considered demons the way we talk about demons, even by ancient people, right?
Yes. Bad spirit.
That did bad stuff. You've got one of those hanging around. Somebody curses you and sicks something on you, and you want to get to leave you alone. Zeus thinks you're good looking. You're desperate to get him to leave you alone.
Yeah.
Right.
Not a good
that's a little anachronistic because this is Mesopotamia, but but the idea is this person knows the rituals and stuff to do to get the spirits you want to buzz off, and the ones you may want to invite to come around. So that's a very different view. Even though we say, oh, that's an exorcist, there's some clear dissimilarities to the Christian concept of exorcism from demons. But so why did we go through all that? Well, it shows you that even, by the first millennium BC, this is a highly formalized thing. This isn't just, people around with theories. I think I figured out what dreams mean. Right. And stuff like this, right? Or somebody's pet projects or something. There are within society functionaries and kings and rulers and government have people on effectively what we would call their staff in these different roles who do these things for them.
Yeah.
Right. And we see that reflected here in the second half. We're going to get into some biblical examples, but you see this reflected in some of the biblical examples, that there are people whose job is to interpret a king's dreams for him. This was a sort of societal thing.
Work if you can get it. I mean,
yeah,
although you better be good at it, because if you're going to be near the king.
Yeah. Well, also, so, I mean, I guess the comparative thing in our modern culture is, everybody probably has some place where they get their news. I shudder to think what that is for most people today, but they have some place where they get their news that they have found to be reliable, right? And so whatever that is has a role within a culture, society, group, right, of sort of providing news and stuff. This is the equivalent of that in the ancient world, right? You want to find out what's going on in the spiritual world, what's going on in the world as a whole. Well, you need some experts, right? And some of those are dream interpreters. And so that's a thing in the ancient world. So, like I said, in the second half here, we're going to get into some biblical examples. We're going to see how some of this stuff carries over or doesn't. The continuities and discontinuities.
Indeed.
With dreams in the Bible.
All righty. Well, you've wasted another perfectly good hour of your life listening to Lord of Spirits podcast. We're going to be right back with the second half. See you soon.
Father Andrew Stephen Damick and Father Stephen DeYoung will be back in a moment to take your calls on the next part of the Lord of Spirits. Give them a call at 855-237-2346. That's 855-AF-RADIO.
What are we to make of the unseen world and spiritual warfare? The Lord of Spirits book version is now available at store.ancientfaith.com. Written by Father Andrew Stephen Damick.
To the modern mind, dragons and demons are just the inner demons of psychology. And angels are often reducible to the better angels of our nature, that is, to our better human impulses and virtues. Talk of spirits is really about psychology. But to the ancient mind of millennia ago, even up to the pre-modern mind of just centuries ago, these are real beings with personal presence who inhabit our world and affect us.
Father Andrew provides a distillation and explanation of the material in the popular podcast, The Lord of Spirits, which he co-hosts with Father Stephen DeYoung. Get this brand new book today at store.ancientfaith.com. That's store.ancientfaith.com.
We're back now with the Lord of Spirits, with Father Andrew Stephen Damick and Father Stephen DeYoung. If you have a question, call now at 855-237-2346. That's 855-AF-RADIO.
Hey, we're back. That was a pretty kind of meta ad. I mean, it's an ad about a book, about the podcast, about... Anyway.
John really missed an opportunity. He really should have said before the segue. See, it's the segues. You guys need to work on the segues. He should have done a "Take it away, Father Andrew" before he threw to you in the ad.
Take it away.
And then you should have at the end of your bit gone, "Back to you, John."
It's a new era of radio, Father Stephen. We don't have to do that anymore.
No, see, I feel like the way you did it makes it seem all too formal and impersonal. People want to feel like they're part of the ancient faith family.
Part of something. Yeah. So, well, I don't see any calls coming in yet.
What?
Actually, no, wait. I'm receiving something, not in a dream. What? Yes, we do in fact have a question coming in. So, Mike DeGan, just patch this person through. As I said, I think all of our callers should be Father Stephen DeYoung. So welcome to Lord of Spirits podcast. Hello. Oh. Not happening.
Hello.
There we go. Welcome.
Hi, this is Luke from Colorado.
Okay.
My question is, when our kids come to us, I have a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they say, "I saw a demon in a dream," or "I saw my patron saint in a dream." How should we react as Orthodox Christians in a way that's not just materialist skepticism, but is not, I don't know, going off in a weird direction?
Yeah, not just patting them on their heads and saying, "That's nice," or you know, "Oh my gosh, quick, get the priest." Yeah, we're going to, so you're tracking with us. I'll just say that, we are going to be discussing some of this kind of thing because we're going to talk about the way that this plays out in the Bible. But I mean, the short version I would say is that the biggest question is what the child does with that. Not, what is because like you didn't experience the dream, right? Not what is the phenomenon happening here, but rather how should we understand and respond to what we're experiencing, right? So, if someone says that they see a demon, then you can talk, okay, what are demons, and the fact that we're protected from them by our baptism, by our prayers, by our repentance, by our patron saints, or if they're dreaming about their patron saint or, something much more beautiful and good. then talk about, okay, so what happened, and what do we know about your patron saint, and all that kind of stuff. Maybe a 3 or 4 year old, it would be a little bit harder to do that, but I think the key thing, of course, is, if they're frightened, to talk to them about the protection of God and the fact that you're there for them, and so forth. And if they're not frightened, then just to talk about the saint, the kind of stuff that you would normally do as a parent. Your instincts are probably pretty good for a lot of that kind of stuff. I don't know, Father, what would you have to add?
So, I have a great nephew who,
is he that great, really?
I think so.
Okay.
And size-wise, he definitely is.
He's one of you Dutch people.
Yes, he's inherited a few years ago, when he was around that age, matter-of-factly informed his parents one morning that he had gotten up to go to the bathroom, saw a ghost, grabbed an icon and charged at it, and it disappeared. So he went back to bed.
Checks out.
Yeah. So I think that is the correct course of action. But so, yeah, I think, I'm really just doubling down on what Father Andrew said. I think there's a knee-jerk reaction to just be like, okay, dreams aren't real. It's not, don't pay any attention to it. And if nothing else, there are things in life that we have to confront that scare us, right? And the way we deal with that is not by denying they exist. At least that's not a healthy way of dealing with them. So yeah, I think, as Father Andrew said, you want to raise dragon slayers, not people who don't believe in dragons.
That's right. I hope that's helpful. Does that fill in some blanks for you?
Yes, and they seem to be taking the more negative side, like Father Stephen's great nephew. So I'll take consolation in that. Thank you, Fathers.
Rock on. Okay, thanks for calling. Okay, we're going to take another call. We have a phone call from James from Jackson, Tennessee. James, welcome to Lord of Spirits podcast.
Hey, Fathers.
Hey.
Just, sorry, I'm really awkward. I'm really awkward on the phone. But
it's okay.
I was calling because I was curious about something.
Yeah.
And I think he just talked about, the last caller just talked about, what was it? How do you guys sort of deal with, let's say, because I don't know if this is just me or if other people have had these experiences. I've had dreams of a sort of a spiritual nature that involve certain things that I think Father Seraphim Rose talked about in his books, specifically regarding extraterrestrial beings, etc. And they didn't make me feel like a sense of dread or anything, but they were very strange, to say the least. And I talked to my spiritual father about this, Father Matthew, at St. Nicholas Orthodox Church. Shout out to St. Nicholas, great community. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I kind of wanted to touch on how you guys deal with, let's say whenever somebody comes by and they maybe have these sorts of strange spiritual dreams. I don't know. I think the previous, I wasn't listening because I was waiting on the call, and also, how do we it's a difficult question to ask. Can I start over?
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, how do we, as Orthodox Christians, really approach these profound, mystical, spiritual dreams that some of us may have in a healthy way? How do we go about, figuring out, are these from God? And how do we apply them in our lives in a way that is healthy?
Yeah.
And also, what are your thoughts, talking about the nature of the dreams that I had, what are your thoughts on sort of this extraterrestrial stuff that's been kind of talked about, especially more recently now that all this stuff's been coming out with the government? How do y'all like approach that stuff, or do you not even touch it with a 10-foot pole?
Oh man, see, people keep wanting us to do UFO episodes, Father Stephen, but so I mean, what do you do with all that stuff? Well, we know what the goal is as Christians, right? The goal is to become faithful to the commandments of Christ so that we can become more like him, right? That's what repentance consists of, is increasing our faithfulness and turning away from unfaithfulness. So, is this from the Lord? Is this from some other source? On some level, right? Like, especially if you listen to this podcast for a long time, on some level, it kind of doesn't matter, because we know that even demonic activity is something that God uses. It's definitely something God permits. And the reason he permits it is for our repentance. So he may permit a demon to tempt us and to send us thoughts in our sleep in order to, to be the basis of repentance for us. Or he may send an angel or a saint or direct, himself, or, when you're waking, he might send someone to you to say something to you, right?
Yeah.
It's all from the Lord if we use it as from the Lord, right? If we repent with it. The way that we get off kilter is if we act in ways that are not faithful to the commandments, right?
Absolutely.
So if someone thinks, oh, I had a dream and that means I need to start doing something really unusual, well, number one, you need to discuss that with your father confessor. Or like you might say, well, I received a message in my dream and I need to go around telling everybody in my parish that they're big sinners and I have the answer for their lives, right? Which, is definitely a thing that happens in some kinds of churches. Like that is a thing that people do. Well, that's, unless you're their priest or their bishop and actually see that there is some kind of malignant sin that's afflicting the whole congregation, then that's actually not your job. And so if you start doing that, then what you're doing is not from the Lord. Yeah,
you're being a ranting madman.
Right. Or an arrogant jerk, or, a know-it-all who's interested in everybody else's sins and not in your own. There's all kinds of possibilities as to where it could go. So the question is what you do with it, right? That's really the question. So, yeah. And I would say, even whatever phenomena you might experience from whatever source, the question is what you do. This is something I've said a bunch of times, because we live in an era in which, in many cases, a lot of hidden things are being revealed that are very upsetting and should be very upsetting. Terrible, terrible things people are doing. On the other hand, it's like, well, human beings have always done terrible, terrible things. And that doesn't mean, of course, that we should be just comfortable with that. But what it does mean is that the mission of the Christian has always been within the same context of dark conspiracies in the world doing terrible things. So that means the mission of the Christian is the same.
Yeah, Father Stephen DeYoung talked about that on his interview with Tucker Carlson, finding out all this stuff in the news. It's like, well, it's been like this for a good few thousand years now. So
I've heard of that interview.
Getting all up in arms about it now.
So, yeah, I don't know. Father, you have anything you want to add on to that, or?
Yeah, this is just related. But yeah, a lot of these things you judge by their fruit, right? Like, you have some dream that causes you to quote unquote realize that everyone who disagrees with you just doesn't realize your spiritual greatness. That's no good for you or anybody, right? Like,
yeah, there's a word for that. There's a word for that. Is it prelest? Is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah. right?
Yeah.
Those kind of things. And
I
so
love that word. That's my new favorite word coming to orthodoxy.
you look at it and you can't.
I've dealt with it a lot myself.
Yeah, so you look
I
at
have a big problem with that myself.
you look at something like that, and you say, well, I don't see any way where this could generate anything good, right? And so you just say, well, forget it. That was, shouldn't have eaten that Brussels sprout burrito right before going to bed. But
Brussels sprout burritos now.
Yeah.
Anyway,
right. But that bit of beef, right? If it's something, you also don't have to. There's this weird like over analysis, right? If you have a dream and you see somebody who in the dream who you loved and you care about who's recently departed, and the dream brings you some kind of comfort or solace or positive feeling, you can just stop there, man. Like,
yeah,
just be okay. Thank God, that was nice, right? You don't have to beat around the hole. Is this real? Is it just? Am I being deceived? You can just good fruit, right? Just let it be.
Yeah.
You don't have to overanalyze everything, right? As we're prone to. But now, in closing, I have a question for you, sir.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, sure.
When you're on your way home, do you listen to "I'm Going to Jackson," or would your wife get mad?
Well, I'm single. I'm a young man.
Okay. So you're safe.
And I kind of just scream at traffic in my car. I don't really listen to much of anything on the way home.
Okay. Well,
maybe you
allow me
should
to
listen to
suggest
something on the way home.
Yes, allow me to suggest Johnny Cash as a more wholesome alternative to road rage.
Amen.
Yes, indeed. Hey, but I will say this, talking about the fruit, when I had this dream, I didn't think less of anybody. And what it did tell me was that no matter what you think is going to happen with aliens or the government or lizard people or Nephilim or whatever, that Christ is king, and that, he is our Lord and our Savior, and he loves us deeply. And nothing can harm us in any meaningful way so long as we're united with him. And I think everybody should go with that. That's my opinion.
Absolutely. We know how this story turns out in the end. Yeah.
Well, Snape kills Dumbledore. Oh, wait.
All right. Thanks for calling, James.
Wrong
Tennessee.
story. Yeah. Sorry. Wrong story.
All right.
Spoiled that for everybody.
We're going to take one more caller. And we have Trish calling from the old North State, the land of the longleaf pine, North Carolina. Trish.
I was worried for a minute there it was my wife calling in to be mad at me.
Different Trish.
Yeah. I can be mad at you. Would you like for me to be mad at you?
I brought up. No, I have enough of
it.
It
might be a nice change.
I have mad at me at home. No. She would just be mildly irritated that I brought up the Brussels sprout burrito. So that.
Yeah.
Ooh. Actually, unfortunately, the first caller had the same question I did as far as, are the dreams coming from your angel or a demon? And should we listen to them if we can gain knowledge from it? Also, what about premonition dreams? Because I've had lots of those.
Stuff you dreamed about and then it happened?
Yes. Not things that I would work towards making it happen. And I wouldn't even realize, I wouldn't even remember the dream until I was literally involved in the exact same situation. I was a social worker and I had a dream about being in a school and a tornado coming. Well, 10 years later, I was teaching in a school and we were having a tornado. And, I got all the kids into the hall and we started praying and it went over us. It missed the school completely. But then I had remembered, oh my, I had this dream 10 years ago. So things like that, places that I would be. And years later, I'm in that exact place, a place that I'd never been before. And it's oh my goodness, this was my dream. Like, I'm in this exact, I don't know.
That's a thing that happens.
Yeah, it is. Like, I mean, it is a thing that happens.
Not kind of weird.
What do you think, Father?
Well, is it though? Because if it happens to you a bunch, and if it happens to lots of other people, is it weird?
Okay.
It could be weird in that Anglo-Saxon sense, which means sort of fate.
Yeah.
Ish.
Well, right. No, but I mean that's serious. So there's lots of things that we think are weird, but we think they're weird because they don't conform to a particular scientific materialist view of the world that we were indoctrinated in when we were growing up, right? But that's just weird from that particular perspective.
Okay, so it's basically normal.
I'm an Orthodox priest. An icon occasionally just giving forth vast amounts of olive oil is not weird if you're an Orthodox priest. It's a thing that happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? So, from that scientific materialist perspective, that's weird. Right? Or another example, long before I knew my wife, when I was still young and foolish, and lacking in guidance.
Foolish now.
Yes, I was seeing a different woman, and I gave her some holy water from Theophany, right? And she's like, "Well, what do you do with this?" I said, "Well, you just, if you start feeling sick or something, drink a little bit of it." And like a year later, she told me, this last year, every time I started feeling sick, I drank some of that, and I never really got sick this last year. Isn't that weird? It was like, well, no, that's not actually weird, right? That's normal, right? Holy water contributing to your health is normal. So yeah, I think part of what we've been doing on the show since the beginning is trying to redefine weird. So for one perspective, we talk about all the weird stuff about Christianity, but part of the goal is this stuff shouldn't be as weird as we think it is. Relics shouldn't be weird to you, right? These things shouldn't be weird. So we need to normalize some of these things again and make some certain other things weird, right? Like having a materialist worldview is weird. Yeah. Having a knee-jerk denial of anything miraculous and wonderful is weird, right? Those are the things we should think are weird. Self-destructive behavior is weird, i.e. sin, right?
Yeah. What do you think, Trish? Does that kind of inch you towards maybe seeing these things as less weird or something helpful, at least at the very least?
Well, yeah, absolutely. That it's more normal than one would think, or that we were taught to think. Put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, the problem comes, right? Like what you told Mike, our screener, was, should you trust your dreams, right?
Right.
Trust them to what purpose, right? For what? The question is, again, what do you do with it? What do you do with this, right? Am I repenting with it? Am I, being following commandments of Christ? Am I being kind to others? Am I, sacrificing my own comforts for other people's welfare? That kind of stuff. So, whereas if you decide your dream means X and you trust that and you act on that, but it's harmful to other people, then no, you should not have done that. Right. No, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that the fact that maybe you're feeling deja vu rather than actually remembering all the premonitory. Yeah, see, I don't, that's not a word I need very often. Things you dream about beforehand. It's probably useful that you don't remember that. That way you don't go around thinking, I know what's going to happen. better not to function in that way, I think.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for calling. Nice to hear from somebody elsewhere in North Carolina.
Well, I'm on the Crystal Coast, but it wasn't very crystalline today.
Oh, well.
We had lots of rain.
Yeah. Anyway, well, all right.
All right.
All right.
Night. Thank you, guys.
You too. All right. Here we are in the second half. Let's talk about dreams in the Bible. So what's with dreams in the Bible?
There are dreams in the Bible.
That's right. Bible dream.
Yeah. So, and there's some examples if we talk about dreams in the Bible and dream interpretation. We know, and we're going to touch on those briefly, the ones that automatically just jumped into your head when we said that, right?
Yeah.
But we also, and we're going to actually spend a little more time on maybe some of the ones that maybe you didn't notice, maybe you passed over a little quickly. And a lot of this is showing, we went over in the first half, the sort of the general ancient Near Eastern milieu and its view of dreams. And a lot of that, there's a lot of continuity, broad continuity, right? Details obviously are going to be different, but broad continuity in a lot of areas with the way the scriptures talk about dreams. That in itself may, you may have been listening to the first half going like, oh yeah, those weird pagans thought this and that. But obviously, the Bible doesn't, take dreams that way. Well, you might be a little surprised at how much continuity there is. And so the first major point of continuity is that some of the earliest references we have to dreams and dreaming in the scriptures are directly connecting the idea of dreams to prophecy. And that starts in the Torah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Numbers 12:6.
I'm about to make Father Andrew do a lot of reading.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's what's
I'm an excellent reader. Numbers 12:6. And he said, hear my words. If there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, make myself known to him in a vision. I speak with him in a dream. And then if you keep reading, the next verse basically says, not like how I appear directly to Moses. So this is like, right. I'll talk to you, to prophets in dreams. Moses I talk to face to face, but other people's can be dreams.
So it's still within the context of the prophetic phenomenon, as we saw
here,
in the ancient Near East broadly, but also it has that sort of secondary status, right? Moses had this direct face-to-face interaction with God. Dreams to communicate is this second tier, right?
Yeah.
Like we talked about. And then that continues.
Okay, so next passage we're going to read from is Deuteronomy 13, verses 1 through 5. If a prophet or a dreamer of dreams arises among you and gives you a sign or a wonder, and the sign or wonder that he tells you comes to pass, and if he says, let us go after other gods, which you have not known, and let us serve them, you shall not listen to the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams. For the Lord your God is testing you to know whether you love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. You shall walk after the Lord your God and fear him and keep his commandments and obey his voice, and you shall serve him and hold fast to him. But that prophet or that dreamer of dreams shall be put to death, because he has taught rebellion against the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt and redeemed you out of the house of slavery, to make you leave the way in which the Lord your God commanded you to walk. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. It's got to be careful if you're going to set yourself up as a prophet or someone who speaks on behalf of God.
Yes, but also notice, right, and people are probably familiar with this passage in terms of prophets and false prophets, right? But they may not have noticed ever that prophet here is paralleled with dreamer of dreams.
Yeah.
Right, that those are presented as being almost synonymous here. Yeah. And that isn't just something, right? So the Torah, originates with Moses in the late Bronze Age. This isn't something that gets left behind, right? So we can go to the other end of Israel's history, to right before the exile of Judah, right? So we're moving forward. Again, I don't care about the date of the Exodus, somewhere between 700 and 1,000 years, right, to a much later period. But that connection still holds, right? There isn't some sort of refinement in prophecy. You get this in a lot of, I don't know if it's still as popular as it used to be, because it got associated with a lot of boomer lib stuff. But they're sort of dying out of scholarship and everything else.
Yeah.
But this idea that these classical prophets, that sort of Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, that this, again, everything evolved, right? So like that's sort of the sort of full blossoming of the prophetic tradition, as if it's now this phenomenon that started primitively with Moses and now has blossomed into its fullest form. But you find the exact same kind of language being used, especially related to the relationship of dreams, right, in Jeremiah at this much centuries later. And now in the axial age, right?
Oh. Yeah. All right. So Jeremiah chapter 23, starting with verse 25. For I have heard what the prophets have said who prophesy lies in my name, saying, I have dreamed, I have dreamed. How long shall there be lies in the heart of the prophets who prophesy lies, and who prophesy the deceit of their own heart, who think to make my people forget my name by their dreams that they tell one another, even as their fathers forgot my name for Baal? Let the prophet who has a dream tell the dream, but let him who has my word speak my word faithfully. What has straw in common with wheat, declares the Lord? Is not my word like fire, declares the Lord, and like a hammer that breaks the rock in pieces? Therefore, behold, I am against the prophets, declares the Lord, who steal my words from one another. Behold, I am against the prophets, declares the Lord, who use their tongues and declares the Lord. Behold, I am against those who prophesy lying dreams, declares the Lord, and who tell them and lead my people astray by their lies and their recklessness, when I did not send them or charge them. So they do not profit this people at all, declares the Lord.
Right. So even in this late, fully developed stage of prophethood, the prophets are claiming that they received their revelation from God through dreams. Right? Through dreams that they give and then interpret. Right? And there are a couple other places in Jeremiah that we could read real quickly that do basically the same thing.
Yes. So Jeremiah 27:9, just one verse here. So do not listen to your prophets, your diviners, your dreamers, your fortune tellers, or your sorcerers who are saying to you, you shall not serve the king of Babylon. And then Jeremiah 29:8. For thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, do not let your prophets and your diviners who are among you deceive you, and do not listen to the dreams that they dream. Definitely get the sense that not everybody who says, hey, I'm receiving something here, should be listened to.
Yeah. Yes, right? That's yeah. But so this will say, and so now you may think, okay, yeah, cool, Old Testament prophets, right? But you haven't listened to our prophet motive episode, so you think, or you haven't read the book of Acts carefully, and so you think that prophecy just sort of ends with St. John the Forerunner. There are, there's no more prophetic activity. But lest you think so, right?
Yes.
In St. Peter's sermon on the day of Pentecost, in Acts 2, verse 17, he quotes Joel 2, verse 28, and says...
Actually, it's verse, 28. So, yes, exactly. Sorry. I'm looking at the numbers. I'm like, wait, 28, 17. What are we doing?
Take it away, okay. Father Andrew.
Acts 2:17. And in the last days it shall be, after I made that big boast about being a good reader, here I am stammering. And in the last days it shall be, God declares, that I will pour out my spirit on all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. Yeah.
And so St. Peter is saying that's fulfilled on the day of Pentecost.
Yeah, it's happening now.
Meaning that the dreaming of dreams will be available to everyone because of the presence of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. Yep.
Not that it's going to end. It's going to be fulfilled not by being abolished, because those are not the same thing. It's going to be fulfilled by this being available to everyone. And we see that this was a standard way. This was considered to be a standard way that God communicated with people, not just with prophets, right? But a way in which God would answer people. And one of the places we see that in the Old Testament, that again, we may have missed, this is a story most people are familiar with, and that we've talked about on the show before in other contexts, right? Famously, Saul, sort of the last great evil thing that Saul, King Saul, not Saul of Tarsus, King Saul from the tribe of Benjamin in the Old Testament. I guess Saul of Tarsus was from the tribe of Benjamin too. Anyway, King Saul, Old Testament, in 1 Samuel, sort of the last great wicked thing that he does. I mean, he messes up a bunch of times, but is going to the witch of Endor to summon up the spirit of the prophet Samuel, right? And obviously, bad thing to do, and this gets talked about in a lot of other contexts. But if you haven't read closely, you might not know exactly what it was that motivated him to do that. But if you read a couple of verses in chapter 28 of 1 Samuel or 1 Kingdoms, you know why.
Yeah. So verse 6 says, "And when Saul inquired of the Lord did not answer him either by dreams or by Urim or by prophets." And then verse 15, this is after he has successfully gotten, this is actual necromancy, by the way, boys and girls. After he has successfully gotten the witch of Endor to call up Samuel, it says, "Then Samuel said to Saul, 'Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?' Saul answered,
"I'm that way."
Yeah, it's got to be. You know, I mean, come on, it's got to be that way.
I made the Dickens reference, and here we go. Okay, go ahead.
These are the chains. Sorry.
Yes.
Saul answered, "I am in great distress. For the Philistines are warring against me, and God has turned away from me and answers me no more, either by prophets or by dreams. Therefore I have summoned you to tell me what I shall do." Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, exactly what motivates him is he is desperate to get a response from God about the future, right? About what he needs to do in terms of making war with the Philistines. And despite his prayers, God isn't answering him. But we get that list in the first verse you read of the 3 ways in which God would normally answer the king.
Yeah.
And the first one listed is by dreams.
Dreams. Yeah.
And then secondly, the Urim, meaning the Urim and the Thummim, right? Sort of, which were cast sort of as lots from the high priest's garment.
They're not stones you put into a hat and then put your face in the hat and get magical translations?
No. Okay. And you won't find water that way either. Or by prophets. Prophets is listed third.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and then again, as Father Andrew read so dramatically, when he's answering Samuel, right, he says God had turned from him and answered him no more, either by prophets or by dreams. Meaning previously he had.
Yeah, I mean, and isn't this after the Holy Spirit left him?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So previously, God had answered his prayers in some cases through dreams. But that now had stopped, and so he was desperate before going into battle to get a word from God, and that was being denied to him. And so he resorts to divination, which is explicitly what the Torah said you should not resort to, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh.
So clearly the significance of dreams, their relationship to prophecy, as we saw there with Saul, dreams as a means of communication from God to humans, right? In this case, the true God to humans. These are these areas of continuity. But another area of continuity that you see, especially, not exclusively, but especially in the wisdom literature in the Old Testament, is that the scriptures also understand a lot of dreams as just being what we called internal.
Yeah.
There's things going on within the person. Not every dream is a communication from God.
Right.
Right. Not every dream is prophetic in some way.
Yeah.
Right. Not every dream is revealing the future in some way. A lot of them, maybe most of them, are just internal. And so we've got a bunch of examples here that Father Andrew is going to read. Got to put him to work. But these are all short examples, but that talk about dreams as something ephemeral, right? Something you wake up and it's gone, right? Something and that's talking about these internal dreams, right? They don't have any greater significance than whatever is going on within a person, right?
Yeah. Okay. So, Job chapter 20, verse 8. He will fly away like a dream and not be found. He will be chased away like a vision of the night. So, you wake up, you forgot. Psalm 73:20. Like a dream when one awakes, O Lord, when you rouse yourself, you despise them as phantoms. Basically the same kind of idea. Psalm 90, verse 5. You sweep them away as with a flood. They are like a dream, like grass that is renewed in the morning. Ecclesiastes 5:3. For a dream comes with much busyness, and a fool's voice with many words. And then Isaiah 29, verses 7 and 8. And the multitude of all the nations that fight against Ariel, all that fight against her and her stronghold and distress her, shall be like a dream, a vision of the night, as when a hungry man dreams, and behold, when a thirsty man dreams, and behold, he is drinking, and awakes faint, with his thirst not quenched, so shall the multitude of all the nations be that fight against Mount Zion. And then finally, Isaiah chapter 56, verse 10. His watchmen are blind, they are all without knowledge, they are all silent dogs, they cannot bark, dreaming, lying down, loving to slumber. Is that about dogs dreaming, or? It seems like it might be.
It could be.
Could be. Interesting.
So, but yeah, you see, so again, within the scriptures, it's not saying, right, every dream is a profound spiritual vision, right?
Yeah.
A lot of them, maybe most of them, probably most of them, because we don't remember most of them, right? They aren't any great revelation of anything about the future, about the, from God, even about ourselves, really, right? It's, I don't know. Have you, so this is personally directed to Father Andrew. So,
I guess
I used to, my stress dream used to be the recurring stress dream for a long time, because I've spent way too much of my life in graduate school. It was always, it's the last day of class. I was enrolled in a class and didn't know it. Now I have to do like the paper and everything and try and get all the work done in some insanely short amount of time so I don't fail, right? That has changed. That has changed over the last maybe 10 years. Now my stress dream is the bishop is here at the church and I can't find my vestments. And liturgy is starting.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Have you experienced something similar?
Yes. I would say, since we're getting personal now, I would say for a long time, I mean, I'm going to say that there's overlap between these, right? But for a long time, my stress dream was, there's something, it's similar to your first one. There's something that I'm overlooking, something that I'm missing, and it's going to ruin everything. Something I don't know, I haven't thought of everything. Right. And then I would say that maybe and this probably just reflects, my current life experience. The stress ones I have now are about something hurting my kids. Something terrible is going to happen to them, Yeah.
Yeah. So you took it to a depressing place, but
I don't know.
I'm going to try and recover this segment. Yeah. But my point being that, right, like, what's that about? What is the big the big revelation is I've lived my whole life based on overconfidence and underpreparedness. And so there's always in the back of my head the idea that someday that will catch up with me. Right? And so that's what both of those dreams have in common. There's no greater significance in that. It's just this nagging reminder to me that, like, hey, yeah, you've skated by so far, but eventually, right, you're gonna,
right,
the chickens will come home to roost, right? So you don't have to go much further than that. So that when we're talking about an internal dream, right, that's the kind of thing we're talking about, right? It's based on, and even, Father Andrew's right. Obviously, as a father, he's worried about his kids, right? Like, and so when he goes to sleep, him being worried about the well-being of his kids manifests as, that kind of dream, right? There doesn't have to be any greater, doesn't necessarily mean it's a premonition that something is going to happen. It doesn't, right? Any of that. It's just an expression of concern. So it's something that's going on in your conscious mind at some level during the day. You go to sleep and, oh, look, there it is in your dream too, right? Yeah. So that's just an example of an internal dream. There's also very clearly, we mentioned one example of this already, but, and I know I've talked about this before, but it may have been in the Bible study. Who knows? I talk too much. I never remember where I said what, but, and no one has time to listen to everything I say, like, for Pete's sake. But
did you know that there are people who have listened to every episode of this podcast multiple times?
Yeah, but they haven't listened to every episode of this and every episode of Whole Counsel of God multiple times, and all the other lateral stuff I do multiple times. It's not humanly possible.
If there is someone out there like that, I don't think that we want to meet you.
No, I don't want to know. Like, get help. Get help.
That's right. It's just a TV show.
Yes. But anyway, at some point or other, somewhere, I talked about, right, the idea that contained in Scripture within Genesis as a pattern, and then within the Hebrew Bible or the Old Testament as a whole, there is this theme, and we already gave one example with Moses versus the later prophets, that dreams are sort of this secondary means of communication, as opposed to the sort of direct communication that God has. And so an example of that is God, of course, starting in right away at the beginning of Genesis chapter 12, appears to Abraham.
Yeah.
And talks directly to Abraham. Abraham has this direct encounter with God. Isaac also. When you get to Jacob, you have this weird mix. Where sometimes he has direct encounters with God and, like, wrestles with him. Right? And other times, like in Genesis 28, verse 10, right, Genesis 28, verse 10, he goes to sleep and has the vision of the ladder or the ziggurat or the staircase, or, right, the stairway to heaven. depending on how you want to translate that, right? But that comes to him in a dream. So you sort of have both with him. During Abraham's life, while Abraham is having God appear to him directly, Abimelech, on the other hand, who is one of the people who Abraham lied to about Sarah being his wife, because he was scared that his wife in her 80s and 90s was so attractive.
Well preserved.
Yes, was the Helen Mirren of the ancient world. Was so attractive that someone was going to murder him to take her. But so he's one of the people he lied to. And Abimelech, God comes to Abimelech not in person but in a dream, and tells him not only like, hey, that's actually his wife, but tells him, I prevented you from doing anything with her. That's why you're not going to die. Which, of course, makes Abimelech very upset at Abraham. Like, you lied and nearly got me killed, right? Like,
hey, whoa.
Yeah. Like, that escalated
cool
quickly.
Here, Abe.
That's... So there's this pattern with Abraham of it's a direct relationship. Somebody like Abimelech, someone else, just random. It's, a dream. Jacob has a mix. And then when you get to Joseph, when you get to the generation after Jacob, Jacob's sons, Joseph has no direct encounters with God. It's all dreams.
Yeah.
And interpreting dreams. Yep. So, and you also see a pattern within the patriarchal narratives of escalating sinfulness, right? Like you think about the things that Jacob's sons get up to, like trying to murder their brother, but also what Reuben did and what Simeon did, right? And what Levi did, right? You could go down the list, right? And so those are related, right? There's sort of this decline, and so because they're not as close to God, God is not as close to them. He still communicates with them, though, but now it's by dreams.
And it's for their sake, right? Like this distancing on God's part is for their sake. Like as they descend further and further into sin, if God appeared to them directly, they would be responsible for that. And it would be harmful for them.
Yes.
So God is, taking a step back, but still talking.
Yes, but still communicating. And so we see that pattern with Joseph, whether we're talking about Joseph's own dreams early in life that he unfortunately tells his brothers about, and they go over like a lead balloon, about his brothers and his mom and dad all bowing down in front of him. Or we're really talking about the dream.
Sing any numbers from a certain Andrew Lloyd Webber show right now.
Yeah.
I'm doing pretty well.
Wow. That's good. Fight the show tunes. Fight the spirit of show tunes. That's what we need to ward off. Get an exorcist.
So you close every door to them. Take those. Anyways.
Or then there's the dreams he interprets for the cupbearer and the baker, right, in the prison, that end up helping get him out of prison, and then because then he interprets Pharaoh's dream about the 7 lean years and the 7 years of plenty, so that, right, and that's specifically a sort of predictive dream that is given so that and interpreted by Joseph so that not only Joseph can have the status he needs to save his family, but also so that they can store up provisions and Egypt can be protected from the famine. The Egyptians reap the benefits too at that point. And then the other major, that's when we're talking about dreams in the Bible, that was probably the first thing that popped into your head was Joseph, right? And if a second thing popped into your head, it was probably Daniel interpreting dreams. There are a lot of deliberate parallels between Joseph and Daniel in this respect, right? And if you think about in terms of dreams being secondary, now Daniel does have direct encounters with God in the apocalyptic sections, But if you think about where the dream and dream interpretation sections, where and when those take place in the book of Daniel, those are when he's a young man like Joseph, and also when he's in the court of a pagan king and in exile. Right. And so you get his interpretation of Nebuchadnezzar's dream of the statue made of the different types of metal, about the succession of empires. You get Daniel's own dream about the beasts, which are also about the succession of empires. And then the passage that we talked about in a lot of detail in our episode, it was one of our Halloween episodes, I think, where we talked about madness, not one step beyond madness, but like, Mad Men, not like, ad executives in the 1960s, but, the insane. In that episode, we talked a lot about Nebuchadnezzar's dream of the tree and how that gets interpreted and his madness and all of that. So if you want a deeper dive into that, that episode is for you. And still available wherever podcasts are sold. So part of that pattern of dreams as a secondary communication is that we see a lot of cases where dreams are sent to Gentiles, right? To people outside of God people. So Abimelech, Pharaoh, Nebuchadnezzar, this continues in the New Testament. Exhibit A of that is in Matthew 27, verse 19. That's where Pilate, when he's sitting in judgment of Christ, gets the word from his wife that she had a dream that revealed to her that she should have nothing to do with condemning that righteous man, right? And she was a Gentile at that point. Now, according to the history preserved in the church, she later became a Christian, but at that point, that wasn't a thing yet.
Yeah.
Christ was still standing in front of her husband. We also, though, see dreams being sent to God's people. Generally, that happens when there is not a prophet, right, directly there. And we see an example of that, too, in the New Testament. And that's several of the dreams that St. Joseph has in Matthew chapters 1 and 2. He has a whole series of them, right? So St. Joseph the betrothed, he has the dream that tells him not to be afraid to take the Theotokos as his wife because of the virginal conception. He has the dream that warns him to go to Egypt. He has the dream that tells him it's time to go back from Egypt. And he gets the dream on the way that tells him to go a different way. And the dream that tells him to not go to Bethlehem, but to go to Galilee, to keep away from Herod. But so there's this whole series of dreams in which angels come to him and communicate these things to him. And if you think about it, there's not a prophet active among the people of that time because St. John the Forerunner at that time was just an infant. Right. But so that also continues in the New Testament. And so on the whole, right, sort of two our overarching themes here is that dreams and their interpretation are deeply connected in Scripture to the whole prophetic phenomenon, right? In terms of representing a way in which God communicates with people, and representing a way in which he in particular communicates something about some danger or something in the future so that it can be avoided or dealt with. But also, and just as importantly, that not all dreams are dreams in this sense, right? That a lot of the dreams are, if not most, are what we've been calling internal dreams, right? That they are just sort of the working out of personal concerns, thoughts, fears.
Yeah.
This kind of thing. So that's Scripture. Third half, after this important commercial announcement for 20 Mule Team Borax or whatever the commercial is going to be for. which I'm pretty sure is not going to be borax. But we're going to talk about we're gonna leapfrog a couple almost 2,000 years forward.
Indeed,
about 1,850 years forward, and talk about what happens to the idea of dreams and dream interpretation in the modern era.
Yep. All right. Well, that wraps up the second half of this episode of Lord of Spirits podcast on dreams. We'll be right back.
Father Andrew Stephen Damick and Father Stephen DeYoung will be back in a moment to take your calls on the next part of the Lord of Spirits. Give them a call at 855-237-2346. That's 855-AF-RADIO.
The centuries after the Protestant Reformation brought about a radical reinterpretation of the epistles of St. Paul, disconnected from any historical reality. But Paul operated, during his entire life, as a faithful Pharisee within the Roman Jewish world. In St. Paul the Pharisee, Jewish apostle to all nations, Father Stephen DeYoung surveys Paul's life and writings, interpreting them within the holy tradition of the Orthodox Church. This survey is followed by DeYoung's interpretive translation of St. Paul's epistles, which deliberately avoids overly familiar terminology. By using words and ideas grounded in first-century Judaism, DeYoung hopes to unsettle commonly held notions and help the reader reassess St. Paul in his historical context. Available now at store.ancientfaith.com. Again, that is store.ancientfaith.com.
We're back now with the Lord of Spirits, with Father Andrew Stephen Damick and Father Stephen DeYoung. If you have a question, call now at 855-237-2346. That's 855-AF-RADIO.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's the third and final half of this.
I zoned out on the commercial. Was it for chocolate-crusted sugar bombs?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Great cereal. Gives you that sugar that gives you vim and vigor for the whole day.
Yes. We're talking about dreams on this episode of the Lord of Spirits podcast. And while we're waiting to see if we get any calls, and actually somebody in the YouTube chat asked about the distinction between dreams and visions. Difference between dreams and visions. I mean, to me, it's basically like, are you sleeping or are you awake? Is that... Or is kind of
in part, we also talked in the first half, if you were paying attention, which Father Andrew clearly wasn't.
Not really.
Yeah, I figured. I don't blame you, right? I mean, you said yourself at the beginning of the episode, why listen, right? So, I mean, why should you listen? But the part of it is dreams in general. A person is completely passive. Whereas within a visionary context, there's more room for interaction.
Okay.
So I gave the example of St. John in the book of Revelation, no S.
I know. People in the chat are saying Revelations. It's driving me really slightly insane.
They're not good people then. Repent.
Shape up, you guys. Repent. Get your repentance on.
The time is short. So, but where you see, for example, St. John asking questions and interacting, right? Whereas dreams in general tend to be passive.
Yeah. All right. We actually do have a call coming in. So we have Deacon Constantine calling from St. Paul, Minnesota. So Deacon Constantine, welcome to the Lord of Spirits podcast.
Hello. Welcome, fathers. Thank you for having me.
The cities.
Yeah, cities. I love them. I want to preface one thing before I start saying thank you both for your podcast. I'm actually a mental health therapist, and I just want you to know that your podcast and support have helped people who are going through emotional struggles and growing, both in their emotional lives and their spiritual lives. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Well,
I also want to preface, and this may be a little spicy preface, that I am a mental health therapist. Yeah. And I serve as a deacon in the church, and I'm getting my doctorate in Jungian psychology. So I know
this is going to be the half for you.
That's right.
I know.
It's coming up, buddy.
This is why I want to phrase this question is, so I'm thinking about the podcast about when you both had, what is the mind? Is it important to have, even today in 2026, an ancient understanding of the mind? Not a modern one, not a Freudian or Jungian, but what would it mean? Is it important, and what would it mean to have like an ancient understanding of the mind? Or is that maybe a mute question? Thoughts, or, is that, where it could go from there.
Well, so we've talked about that question off and on a lot. And then we had a whole episode called, But We Have the Mind of Christ.
Yes.
So one of our big themes has been, part of what we're trying to accomplish is at least to give people a framework for understanding the scriptures, particularly. This is fundamentally a Bible study podcast, but other ancient texts and phenomena, whatever, to give a framework as much as possible to try to begin to understand it in a way more like the people who would have received it initially would have. Mm-hmm. But the truth, of course, is that we are all modern people, postmodern people.
Yeah.
Right? We're all, as what's his name? Charles Taylor basically says, we're all secular now. Mm-hmm. We can't.
What about the primitive Baptists? Are they not?
Oh, maybe not the primitive Baptists. Yeah, okay. Maybe not the primitive Baptists. Or the old regular Baptists. I don't know. Whose music is amazing. We can't flip a switch and suddenly think in a different way and in an ancient way. And even if we could, we're embedded in our culture, and so the people around us would not participate in that, and so we would not be able to actually do it the way that they did, right? Yeah. Which involves other people too. Mm-hmm. So we are what we are, But I think that to access to really to appropriate for ourselves more of what's in the scripture and in the Holy Tradition of the Church, that trying to understand this kind of framework a little bit better can help give us access to more of that kind of thing. And indeed, this is the project of the Church Fathers, who a significant amount of what they're trying to do is explain the Bible, which they wouldn't do that if they thought that it was, to use the Protestant term, perspicacious. That just immediately completely makes sense to anybody who just picks it up and reads it. I'm not saying that there's nothing you can get out of just picking up and reading the scriptures, no matter who you are, where you are, what your background is. Absolutely, I believe there's a lot that can be drawn. But the reason why we study it and try to and listen to it over and over again and try to understand more deeply is because it's not all just immediately available on the surface in the first read. Right. And so I think that the value in trying to understand a little bit better is so that we can appropriate this for ourselves. Now, as we've always said, right, let's say you never listen to this show. Let's say you never have done any of this kind of study, or maybe have a completely different, set of context or just experience, or you don't speak the language we're speaking, and whatever it might be, right? We're not saying that this is the key that everyone must have to understand the Bible. We're not saying that by any means. The point is to become faithful. So, working on trying to acquire that framework, it's not a goal in and of itself. It's the purpose is faithfulness, right? So, if someone just says, this is just too much for me, I just can't do this. I am who I am, and that's just the way that it is. And that person lives a faithful life. Great. Thank God they're doing it. Right. So that's what I think. What do you think, Father?
Yeah. So let me see if I understand the thrust of your question. Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Is what you're pushing for a question of whether, for example, the modern concept of mental health, right, and the mind in that context is compatible with an ancient understanding of the nous, or if they're somehow at odds and you have to choose one or the other. Is that sort of the thrust of what you're asking?
Yes, because I think that's a real question that, thank you.
Right, right. So, and I don't know how much currency his name or thought has in the modern world, but I think of somebody like Jay Adams, who back in the 80s and 90s in reform circles was doing counseling and just literally denied that mental health was a thing.
Okay, sure.
And that mental illness was a thing. He said, that's just a secularized version of the idea of spiritual health.
Yeah.
Right. And they were opposed.
Yeah.
Right. That's not what I'm arguing for, at least. Right.
Sure.
No, I don't think that's correct. And I'm sure I've referred to on the show to the idea that spiritual health, mental health, and physical health are three separable but deeply interrelated things.
Yeah.
Right. So I do think our concept of mental health is describing something, right? And so this is part of what we're going to get into in this third half that I already alluded to earlier in the episode, is that, and why I wanted to hammer so much, that ancient Near Eastern pagans understood that not every dream was divine communication. Right? That a lot of it was internal processes. They didn't have the terms to talk about mental processes then, right? But it was internal within the person, right? And so the problem is, and Scripture has that category too, as we were talking about in the last half. So having that idea is not the problem. Limiting dreams or limiting everything to that is the problem.
Yeah.
Right? Cutting off the spiritual end, replacing the spiritual with just mental. Right? That the spiritual stuff is just all in your head. Right? Effectively. That's where we run into a problem. So I think if you don't have a concept of the nous, right, then yes, you're missing something huge, right? And frankly, you're not going to be able to really understand Orthodox theology and ways of being and thinking about the world without a concept of the nous. But the concept of the nous doesn't sort of evict everything else. I mean, in that one episode, I low-key was plagiarizing Aristotle. I went through Aristotle's 5 intellectual virtues for people who recognized it, right? From the Nicomachean Ethics, where he has the nous as the pinnacle, right, of what the mind is, but he also has, wisdom, prudence, these other reasoning faculties. Right. In another place, he just divides it in two. There's the epistimonikon and the loistikon, right? The one of which is concerned with ultimate reality. The other one is concerned with day to day, sort of. So, so those aren't opposed to each other.
Yeah.
To me at all. Right. So I think it is just as big a mistake for someone in the church to ascribe mental illness or the effects of trauma or something in sort of purely spiritual terms. That's being a faith healer to me in the same sense as ascribing physical illnesses to spiritual states, right? The way the people we traditionally call faith healers do. So, I don't believe in mental health faith healing either. Yeah. But so what that I think means on a practical level is that as someone who's doing therapy from an Orthodox Christian perspective, just as any therapist has to also have physiological stuff in mind, as an Orthodox Christian therapist, you have to have the mental health stuff and the physiological stuff and the spiritual stuff in mind, right? And ideally, when there are people struggling with things, you have people working together. You have a father confessor, someone involved in therapy, a doctor, right? Medical doctor, all working together with the same goal of health, right? For this person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that help, Deacon?
Fathers, thank you. That was beautiful. I would make a quick plug. I'm on the board of OCAMPR, which is the Orthodox Association for Medical, Psychological, and Religious Professionals, and our conference is next month. So we strive very much to these questions and to these points. I'm again,
thank God.
Grateful. Thank you so much, fathers.
Yeah. Thanks for calling.
Yep.
All righty. All right. Well, the call board is full. We're going to take everybody currently on the board, and then we're going to move on. So we've got 3 more.
You're never getting to sleep.
I know. That's okay. This is
we're keeping old man David up all night.
That's right. I know, and I didn't even sleep that much last night either.
We were thinking about Almond Delight.
So we've got another caller from Minnesota. So we've got Catherine. Catherine, welcome to the Lord of Spirits podcast.
Thank you, fathers. Can you hear me?
You're welcome. Yes, we hear you. Do you hear us?
Okay.
Are you not from the city?
Thank you. No, I am from a very sleepy town called Sleepy Eye, population 3,000, very rural here.
Nice.
So I'm not from the cities, no.
You know,
go ahead, Father.
I was going to say, my mother's people are from a very rural town in Minnesota called Ogama. Have you ever heard of it?
No. Is that north?
No, it's southwest of the cities.
Really?
Yeah. Green Isle, Sibley County, I think maybe is the.
Yeah. Well,
anyway,
that's my neck of the woods, really close. So well, I'm not from this part of the state originally. I'm from more central Minnesota, so I'm still learning the geography a bit down here. But,
I hear you.
Okay.
You're in the warm, balmy part of Minnesota now. Is that what's going on?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, pretty much, Father. Although, autumn you can taste, it's cooler in the mornings, and I love that part. I love autumn and what's coming, the changing of the leaves.
Gotcha.
Okay, my question is, before, as I'm tracking the bridge between what you spoke of in an ancient Christian understanding of dreams, or just an ancient world understanding of dreams, and now I feel like we're going to springboard into more of a modern era. Someone who came up for me as I was thinking about dreams was William Shakespeare and how he treats them. And I'm thinking of his big, comedy play, A Midsummer Night's Dream, where there's fairies falling in love with men with donkeys' heads. And then, in the tragedy Romeo and Juliet, Queen Maeve, or I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation. But at one point, there's a line where Mercutio says, I speak of dreams, which are the children of an idle brain. And is there, do you have any thoughts on, what happens between, the ancient world and the ancient Christian understanding of dreams and, Freud? I mean, and is Shakespeare there? I mean, do you have any thoughts on what he's doing, with an ancient Christian understanding of dreams, or an ancient, in general understanding of dreams as he's writing about them in plays? Or does that make sense? I guess I'm wondering,
wow,
can he teach us something about that in between?
I feel like, Catherine, I feel like one of my friends must have put you up to this, because
yeah, this one's all you, old man.
Yeah, right? Ooh, I could talk about Shakespeare. I mean, this was my deal in undergrad, Catherine. I don't know if you know that, but Renaissance drama and poetry was what I spent a lot of my years. Oh boy, 30 some years ago now. Okay, so how to summarize? A lot of what's going on in Shakespeare, but not. I mean, it's not like he suddenly invents this. It's a progression up to him and after him. But a lot of what's going on in Shakespeare is, on some level, the individual is being invented. Okay, and I once took a graduate level. When I was an undergrad, I wormed my way into a graduate level course because I knew the professor and he let me in. Because I loved studying Shakespeare's plays, and the first play that we studied was Hamlet, and I think Hamlet is really a key one for trying to get what's going on, what I'm talking about right now. And we spent, and I remember I told my wife about this one time, and she's like, "That's insane. Why would you do that?" But for me, it was like, "Wow, this is so great please give me some more. We spent 3 weeks talking about the first line of Hamlet, which of course is, who's there? And now it wasn't only just those two words. There was a whole lot of background information that was being given to take us there. But, that is, not to put too fine a point on it, but that is the question, right? I mean, Hamlet later on in that same play, as he's contemplating suicide, he says, basically, to be or to not to be, that is the question. And he's thinking about ending it all. But the question of who's there is the question of the one and the many, the community, the individual. Yes, something is rotten in the state of Denmark, but something is also rotten in Hamlet himself, which is that he's not willing to accept that everyone dies. Right? He becomes fixated on his father's death, and so I think what happens in between the ancient understanding, I mean, this is obviously just a massive, massive oversimplification, but I think what happens between the ancient understanding and then some of the stuff that we're about to talk about after we take a couple more callers, Freud and Jung and whatnot, is this kind of invention of the individual. I mean, we had persons before, of course, but we did not conceive of ourselves as being truly separate. I mean, think about what's happening in Hamlet. I mean, I assume you know the play, that you're throwing out all these references to Shakespeare, but, think about what's happening to Hamlet. He spends the whole play largely talking to himself. And when he does interact with other people, is he really even noticing them? I mean, this is what messes with Ophelia so much. She's like, what's your problem? We used to be a thing. And he's like just in his own little world.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah. And okay. And Midsummer Night's Dream is not the same theme. You brought this up, right? It's not the same theme, but at the same time, the whole thing is meant to be, like it all gets sort of solved in the end. It's meant to, it's what in Shakespeare's genre is a comedy, right? So comedies always end with weddings in Shakespeare's plays. That's what makes it a comedy. Is it ends with a wedding, and if you're really good, you get multiple weddings, like As You Like It. I mean, how many are there in that? But a lot of what's going on there is essentially saying it was just all a dream. Fairies are real in that play for sure. And I was in a production of this when I was in high school, actually. And I'm not going to tell anybody what part I played, but anyway, again, it's like, well, it's this kind of spiritual world that exists outside of ourselves is only kind of relevant insofar as it's about us. Right? I mean, that's one of the things that's going on in that play. And so there's this reduction. I mean, actually, Tolkien was really mad at Shakespeare because of what he did to fairies, that fairies became small, and not literally so in Shakespeare's play, but you mean, think about the way that we conceive of fairies here in 2026, is that they're little things, and what does that mean? Right? It means that we regard spirits as being kind of, maybe they're out there, not really that big of a deal. And to me, actually, the final version of that, actually, which I really loved, is in Labyrinth. Have you seen that movie, Labyrinth?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So at the beginning of Labyrinth, and I'm sure a bunch of listeners out there have seen this movie. You should watch it. It's a great movie from the 80s. At the beginning near the beginning of Labyrinth, there's a dwarf character who's going along. He's going up to fairies who are, tiny little Tinkerbell type fairies. And and he's basically got some kind of like, exterminator juice that he's spraying them with, and they fall down and die. He's spraying for fairies, just like you might spray for, ants or whatever. And to me, that's the final version of that is that they've been completely materialized and turned into nothing special at all. They're just bugs. Right. So I think, what happened in between the ancient, I know this is kind of a rant now, but, you asked, what happened between the ancient world and 19th century and 20th, it is the individualism. The individual is kind of invented on some level. It's not that people didn't conceive of themselves as distinct, but the individual has kind of his own little world. And this is the basis for materialism, because we start out with a crowded spiritual world, God and the angels and the saints and the demons and, the heavenly hosts. And then with the Reformation, you kind of shove the saints and the angels off to the side. And then eventually you get the sense of, okay, that's actually, to pay them any attention at all is idolatrous. So then the spiritual world loses a whole level, and it's just God and then us. And then eventually what you get is it's just us. And then now here we are, right? Postmodernism, whatever. I'm not even sure there's an us. I'm not even sure there's a me. And I don't know. That's my kind of big take on what's wrong with the world. But that's what I think. And I think Shakespeare is actually a great place to kind of explore some of that stuff. It's amazing art, really fun to watch and to read, but also can be really powerful. And who is there? So I don't know.
Yeah. Thank you,
there you
Father.
go.
I love
some
that.
of the stuff I picked up when I was an undergrad, and I've been thinking about for 30 years because I love Shakespeare, and I've, in some level, I've had to kind of justify why I love Shakespeare so much, and that's one of the reasons. Not just that he's entertaining; he is very entertaining. But
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Wow, I hardly get a chance to go to rant like that, Father Stephen. So why did you let me go on and on?
So I had a nice little break.
Welcome back.
Yeah. Spending that much time on who is there seems like writing a whole book on who was the boss.
Angela was the boss.
According to at least 13 discrete definitions of what it means to be a boss.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Well, thanks for calling, Catherine. I hope I encouraged you in your love for the Bard of Avon.
Absolutely, that was very, very wonderful. Thank you so much.
And if you find yourself out in, I think there's a little Lutheran church out in the countryside with a cemetery in Green Isle. Go say a prayer for my ancestors if you don't mind.
I will.
Yeah,
I will. Absolutely, Father.
Yep.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
All righty. All right. Okay, we're gonna take another call here, and
I will say, just to clarify,
ahead,
I do also enjoy those plays that Edward de Vere wrote.
You are fired. At least you didn't say Francis Bacon.
Yeah, no, that's lame. That's lame. It's Edward de Vere, nothing. You got to go all the way.
All right. Okay, we're going to take another call. We've got Monica calling from the state of True Yankees. Monica from Connecticut. Welcome to Lord of Spirits podcast.
Thank you, Fathers. Good evening.
Good evening.
That was a really interesting conversation. I was just riveted. So now I have to remember my question.
Where in Connecticut are you from?
I'm from the beautiful coastal Milford, which is really nice this time of year. I mean, it's not too hot, kind of beautiful.
Yeah,
there was a
really
movie
hot
set in Milford.
Milford. It sounds like a very
my dad was from Southington. Do you know where that is?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay, very good. Yeah. Actually, you're in another state that another bunch of my people are all buried in. A lot of them are buried in Marlborough on the other side of Hartford.
Oh, come visit them and come visit us.
Yeah, I do once in a while. I go pray over my people. So, all right, what's on your mind, Monica?
My question has to do with, listening to all this, and my question has not morphed exactly, but it has more definition now, because I'm hearing you guys talk about basically there's three, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's basically three sources of dreams, right? First is this internal source, which you're saying modern psychology has just said that that's the only source. The second source would be spirits, demons, kind of. And then the third is from God. Am I kind of getting the thing here?
Generally
yes.
True. Yeah.
Okay. because, and so the way that you figure out discern what dream is from internally, what dream is maybe from a demonic source, because you were quoting the Bible and it was saying if somebody says a dream and it ends up being true, and then they use that to try and take you away from God, then that's a demonic dream, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's
yes. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Okay. If somebody, so I'm just like, I've had a lot of crazy dreams to preface this, but some of the dreams that have actually brought me closer to God ultimately have actually been like nightmares, specifically dreams where I'm like fighting demons. So I'm like thinking, is this like a dream about demons? Maybe God let happen to allow me to kind of like think over some things that I really needed to, or is this like some Freudian, like, do I have to throw all these Jungian layers on top of it? Or can it kind of just be like all three kind of coming together? Because, I've really had some crazy experiences while I've been dreaming that have ultimately led me closer to God, led me to refine my faith. It's just something that I think about a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, ultimately the point is what you do with it.
Right.
Right. I mean, the question of source is an interesting one, but I don't know how most of us would be able to tell exactly, because dreams by definition are a little ambiguous,
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, what do you think, Father?
Yeah. Well, I mean, all good things come from God, right? Just definitionally. And the Bible sort of says that.
God is good.
So, I think, therefore, any dream, regardless of the route it takes to get to you, could potentially be something that you can see as a gift from God, right? So, we've talked before on the show, the reason God allows demons the activity that they're allowed is that he's using that to bring people to repentance. So if you have a nightmare and it brings you to repentance or brings you to an renewed awareness of God and your need for God, right, then even though that may have come to you by way of demons, that was ultimately, right, God's doing. God allowed that in order to bring about that result. Like even the stuff, so like the example I gave of an internal dream, right? That's just me going on in my head that eventually, right, my lack of preparedness, right, will catch up to me. Like if I actually did something about that ever, right? Like then I could say that those dreams were a blessing from God. I don't actually do anything about it because I'm a glutton and a drunkard and a friend to ortho bros and sinners. But potentially at least I could act on that, right? And sort of repent of things like procrastination and sloth.
You'll get around to it.
Right? Yeah, I have all the time in the world. Right? But so these things are ultimately they all can be from God depending on how we receive them.
Yeah.
Regardless of what route, whether they rise up from within ourselves or they come from through by way of an angel or a demon, ultimately they can all be from God if we receive them in that way for repentance and faithfulness and those things.
Indeed. Does that help, Monica?
That's helped so much. And my second part, sort of to like a very much follow up to this, is like, how do we discern what's appropriate to share with other people? Especially
I'm the wrong person to ask on that one.
When it comes to those kinds of dreams, because I have had some dreams that were personally, spiritually, like they spurred me to higher things, to be better. And I do feel like like, I do want to share some of that because I think that there are people who have maybe had dreams like that. But I also don't want to, like, I don't know. I don't want to, like, fixate on anything. And I also don't want to, like, be like, I've had all these crazy dreams. Like, I don't want to make a big deal out of it. And I don't know, like, is this something that I should just, like, maybe talk to my spiritual father about and share the dreams with him? And then maybe we can, like, talk about what would make sense, like what would be helpful for somebody else who was maybe in my position 10 years ago to hear, and what would actually make them fixate on the wrong things.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have your answer right there.
Okay.
but I would add to it. You know, it really depends on the relationship.
Right.
Because someone, you know, if you don't know that the person can receive that kind of conversation in a way that's sober and beneficial, then they're probably not ready for it. You know, and also like this can be very personal stuff. So the relationship needs to be a good, close one, you know, within which that kind of conversation can happen. Because like I said, you know, people can take these things in weird, in you know, Father Stephen's definition of weird, in weird directions, in unhelpful directions.
Yeah. Right.
You know?
And you know, there's so much evidence in the Bible about bringing dreams to the community that maybe have community significance. Is my other, it's like, I don't know, I'm like sort of, I don't want to do anything spiritually dangerous, but I also maybe, like you're saying, like there are certain dreams that I've had that I know have, I don't know, that kind of in this conversation that maybe aren't just for me. Does that make sense? And I'm not trying to be like weird about it. I'm really not trying to be weird about it. I really want to be careful about it. And so I guess I'm having like a discernment problem here.
Yeah, I think, I mean, part of it is, a big piece of it is that stuff that's meant for a whole community, the question needs to be asked, am I responsible for these people? You know? And if you're not, there's a good chance that, you know, it's not actually for all of them.
Yeah. But your priest is.
Your priest is. Yeah.
And so that's why he can guide you. He knows those other people, and he can say, yeah, I think it would be good if you shared this with whomever. Or he could think about those other people and say, maybe this one maybe this one's just for you, at least for now, you know?
Yeah. Yep. So, all right. Well, thanks very much for calling, Monica. All right, we're going to take one more call, and then we're going to move on with the last half. So we've got Rudy calling from Dallas. So, Rudy, welcome to Lord of Spirits podcast.
Good evening,
Good
fathers.
evening.
Awesome. So I just got off work a little bit ago, and I called when I heard and saw the topic about dreams, and I caught a little bit, and I've heard, long-time listener, first-time caller, by the way.
All right.
So my main question kind of was along Monica's, but my wife is the one that has a lot of dreams and how to, I guess, shepherd that, like how to intercede and cover my wife with her dreams. And maybe that's something that, from what I'm picking up, hopefully that's something that can kind of glean from the third half a little bit. So, and then just ask for prayers. Ask for
God bless you
prayers
both.
From you guys.
God bless you both. I think, you know, especially when we're talking about particular people and particular relationships like this is definitely a good conversation to have with your own parish priest, your own father confessor, you know, who can know you, who can know your wife, and can, you know, gently and lovingly give guidance within those particulars. Yeah. So I hope the third half is helpful.
Yeah.
See,
I mean, I think the assumption should always be, when God gives you any kind of whether a dream or any other kind of experience, spiritual experience, when God gives that to you, we should start out assuming this is just for me.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't share it with anybody. That should be where you start. It's not necessarily where you end, but that should be where you start. And then I think at the point where you think, I think it might be helpful in this situation or that situation to share this with this person or that person, that's where you bring in another party, right? Whether it's your wife talking to you, your wife talking to the priest, you talking to the priest, all three of you being involved, right? You run that by someone else, right? And sort of their discernment and spiritualism, and see if they share the same thought, right? And confirm, yeah, that would be a good thing to share, or whether they say, maybe again. But minimally, that's for you. That's a gift that God has given you, right? And we should start with that and sort of cherish it as that.
Yeah. God bless you both, Rudy.
Thank you, fathers. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right. Well, skipping over, as you said,
5 more calls.
Of history.
No,
a couple thousand years of history, with a little detour to William Shakespeare there, and so anyway. All right, where are we? What's going on here in the modern age?
I don't even know anymore. Who's there? I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So when we come to modern talk about dreams, there's sort of 2 poles, right? Or 2 extremes, right? One of those would be described by folks like Freud, or Freud dude, or whatever you want to call him, and his ilk. I think Freud has ilk for sure. But where this is, as we've been talking about with some of the callers and alluded to earlier, where all dreams are just what we've been calling internal dreams. All of them are just things going on within the person, right? So there's that pole. And then the other pole, which we usually associate with new agey kooky stuff, right, is dreams are purely spiritual. They're all significant, right? And they all have some spiritual significance and connection. And in fact, your dream journal is the foundation of your spiritual life, right?
Yeah, right.
Like, because you're spiritual but not religious, right? Like off of that, on that side, right? So obviously neither of those extremes is correct. And then Jung represents a kind of porque no los dos, but not a porque no los dos in the sense that he really draws that back together in the ancient way that we were talking about, or the biblical way, right? Where some dreams are total, some are spiritual, and this kind of thing. But it's sort of that put through a modernist lens. And so we're going to develop that a little more. But sort of those 2 poles, and then Jung is this kind of weird bridging figure between them. That's sort of the paradigm under which in this half we're going to talk about these modern views. So the word modern is not just there to mean recent. It's meant to really mean modern.
Yeah.
Late 19th, early 20th century.
Period. Yeah.
So, and you know, when our friend the deacon called in, I thought he might be this person. I predicted to you when we were talking about this earlier that no matter what we do, no matter how hard we try, there's going to be somebody. And having had a good conversation with the deacon, I don't think he will be this person. But there's going to be somebody in the YouTube comments on this episode who's going to go full pedant about either Freud or Jung or both, you know, and list all the nuances we got wrong. Okay. And part of the reason why I don't think it'll be the deacon is he's actually doing a PhD in this. And the guy who turns into the Earl of Pedantry, like, never actually has any formal education in the topic.
It's always the Google School of Theology.
Yes, it's some autodidact, right, who's decided he's an expert. So all of this framing is the response I'm not going to give to your comment. But so we'll start with Freud, right? And so, look, guys, I'm not giving a lecture on Freud. I'm not giving a course on Freud. I'm giving you maybe 5 minutes on Freud, okay? So Freud's On the Interpretation of Dreams is like a huge book.
Yeah.
I'm not giving you a nuanced take. I'm giving you a very bare-bones summary. Okay?
Yeah.
As I'm not claiming to be, right, giving you an in-depth description. Okay. But, so here's basically super short version of how Freud thinks dreams work. And this sort of sets a trajectory that forms one of the poles, as we were saying. He's like one of the best representatives of this. The idea that all dreams are internal dreams. So for him, every dream springs from some event the day before. It's not always obvious how, right? There could be a long string of toppled dominoes in between whatever you experienced the day before and the dream, but there was something that brought that to mind. So there's some trigger, right, for dreams. But what that trigger triggers, what detonates when that trigger goes off, is any dream for Freud is an expression of a wish or a desire for something to be true. Okay. Now, you may be saying to yourself, I can see how that would make sense if you're having good dreams, right? Like if you dream you're flying, oh, it's because you think it would be wonderful to fly, or you dream that you're the president of the United States or the king of the world or something, right? But what about nightmares, right? What about things that you wouldn't desire, things that you wouldn't wish for, right? Yep. But that you dream about, right? Or just not beyond nightmares, just bad dreams in general, right? Unpleasant dreams in general. You got to remember, for Freud, there is something called the death drive. That is not the old hard drive on the last PC I bought before I went back to Mac.
Wait, you're a Mac user?
I'm a Mac user. I was an early Apple guy, and then I was broke, and so I had a PC period, and then I went back to Mac.
Wow. I thought you only belonged to one religion at a time.
That's well, it's an apple with a bite out of it. I'm just saying, maybe it's not a different religion. It's just the heretical form.
Anyway.
So the death drive for Freud is, I think one of the best examples of it is, when you're going and you're looking over a ledge, and there's that little thing in the back of your brain that thinks about jumping.
Yeah.
Or you're driving over a bridge.
Yeah.
And the thought crosses your mind and just driving off of it. I have that all the time on bridges, and I made the mistake of telling my wife, when she was my fiance, about this while we were driving across the Bay Bridge in San Francisco. I've always had the thought when I'm driving. So
maybe don't share every single one of your thoughts.
Yes,
with your
that's why I said when the caller said she needed, discernment in what to share, I was like, I'm not the guy.
Right.
I'm Mr. Overshare. So, but right, that kind of thing. But it's also what lies behind all kinds of self-destructive behavior. Right. That cigarettes cause lung cancer, but you keep smoking anyway. Right.
Not me.
That, yeah, this was the general you, Father.
One knows that.
Although the fact that you got defensive there is interesting psychologically, but you are in like the tobacco capital of the world. But
it's true. I literally drive by just fields and fields and fields of tobacco every day. It's true.
But so all of those patterns, right? So Freud, of course, doesn't have a concept of sin, right, or anything like this. But he has this. There is within it this drive toward destruction, right? That is a thing, right? That is active in us, and so some of those dreams can be an expression of that, the wishes or desires associated with that, right? And so that's how he can say all these dreams are expression of that wish or desire. But then there is also something in dreams that Freud calls dislocation, right? Meaning, even when you're dreaming, dreaming for Freud is not purely just your subconscious mind running wild. Your conscious, at least part of your conscious mind, is still in action. That's why someone could learn how to lucid dream, is because there is some element of your rational faculties, right? When you're dreaming, you could probably think of examples of dreams you've had in which you think about things or try to act rationally with something that's happening, even if it's completely irrational and weird, right? So there is some element. And for Freud, part of what that still remaining rational faculty does is sort of censor the dream, censor those subconscious desires, right? It has enough wherewithal to look at some of those subconscious desires that are now coming to the fore in your dream and go, ugh, right? And so it'll sort of, warp them a little bit to make them a little more palatable, right?
Yeah.
And that forms a kind of suppression, right? So this normally subconscious desire, triggered by something that happens during the day, expresses itself to your mind in a dream, but your conscious mind kind of holds it back and censors it. So for Freud, when a psychoanalyst, right, the analyst is dealing with a client or a patient and is interpreting their dreams, the goal then is to bring out that latent censored content, right? To be like, oh, right, the dislocation changed this into that, right? So it turned, the knife into a balloon, right? Or whatever, right? And I'm deliberately not using any of the sexual examples that spring to mind in Freud because I'm trying to be fair to Freud. And Freud during his life was accused of making everything about sex. And he got really grumpy about that and insisted he did not do that. That the sex drive was obviously, the drive to reproduce is obviously a powerful drive within humans, but there are others, according to Freud. So I don't want to pigeonhole it with that using the sexual examples, but they probably spring to mind for you too, and are probably best unsaid on Ancient Faith Radio's airwaves. So you could fill in those blanks. But you can see how within that, again, it's just all internal processes. It's just sort of your mind trying to work things out that are going on in your mind at a subconscious or unconscious level, but that are now coming to the fore in dreams, and you're working them out. And even a lot of people in psychology, a lot of stuff, who aren't into Freud specifically, who would disagree with a lot of Freud's particular claims and conclusions, will still in general tell you something like, well, dreams are your mind working out stuff from the day before, right? Or working through things, that worries, cares, desire, right? Like that, you can see that kind of general. That's why I say he represents one pole, where everything is an internal process. All dreams are internal dreams. They're just all going on within you and your own mind. Okay. So now Jung, okay, And here we're talking about Jung himself. Not everyone who's a Jungian, not everyone who studies Jung, not everyone who appreciates Jung, because they do all kinds of things with him. They take all kinds of insights from him and take them in different directions, right? So we're not saying anybody who's a Jungian or anyone who has ever quoted Jung publicly believes everything we're about to say. We're just talking about the man, the historical person, Carl Jung. This is what he seemed to understand. And once again, like with Freud, this is a very, very short summary. Okay, so there's lots of depth here that we're not going into, lots of nuance that we're not going into. But so similar to Freud, right? There are things in dreams that are being communicated to the conscious mind, being brought to the conscious mind from the unconscious. But you have to remember that for Jung, there is the collective unconscious. Lots of Jungians mean lots of different things by that now. Okay? But we're going to talk about, again, Jung himself. So the collective unconscious means that for Jung, the unconscious mind, you don't have your own individual unconscious mind. The unconscious mind is something that's shared by, for Jung, essentially all of humanity at any given point.
Yeah, it's a sort of collective thing that we can all tap into.
Right. And so dreams then are communication, but that communication is not coming from spirits or God, right? That communication is coming from the collective unconscious to your consciousness. Okay.
Yeah.
So all dreams are sort of this collective unconscious mind communicating to your personal conscious mind. Okay. And that's why, so because of that, because all of this communication is coming from this collective unconscious mind, that's why Jung believed you could identify these universal symbols and patterns that represent and mean the same thing in everyone's dreams. Right? Because it's this one collective unconscious communicating to your consciousness, so it speaks the same language, essentially, to everybody.
Yeah.
It's a language of patterns and symbols. Okay. And so in order to understand dreams, you with your conscious mind have to learn that language. You have to identify those patterns and those symbols. Okay. And now, again, this is the part where people get grumpy. This is when I talked about Jung's Gnostic cult and stuff. People got grumpy at me. But again, we're just talking about Jung the person here. This doesn't mean every Jungian totally believes this. So Jung's probably most famous or infamous work is his Red Book. And that emerges out of a series of personal experiences he had, which, and again, I know there's lots of nuance here, but the broad strokes is he had what he believed to be, during World War I, he had what he believed to be a powerful experience of the collective unconscious, where like he tapped into it, right? Due to the sort of collective trauma that was going on in Europe. And that experience led him to sort of become a hermit, right? He sort of locked himself up, right? And again, from his perspective, allowed himself to slip into madness, which for him was something like letting go of his own personal, conscious, rational mind and sort of just submerging himself into the collective unconscious to try to learn and understand from it. That's sort of his understanding of what was going on. And so the Red Book is sort of his dream journal. The dreams, experiences, and hallucinations that he had during that period of sort of self-allowed madness. And so the Red Book is not just like him writing prose text. There's drawings of dragons and stuff. There's all kinds of stuff in there, right? But that's because that's what it was. And then after a period of time doing that, he sort of got himself together. So it's important that Jung, when we're talking about the collective unconscious, people are very quick to run with that in a New Age direction. Yeah. Right? Was the collective unconscious God? Right? Is it something super? And Jung insisted it was not supernatural. And you might think, how can that be? Well, Jung, again, Carl Jung the person, not everyone who identifies as a Jungian, but Carl Jung the person believed in telepathy. He believed that literally every human, all human minds were connected to each other telepathically. And that's what produced the collective, or that's what the collective unconscious was. It was that level of where everyone's minds are connected to each other. And you may say, well, telepathy sounds supernatural to me. Well, no, Jung is a 19th and early 20th century German. So everything's Wissenschaft, you got to remember. Right. So for him, no, telepathy was a scientific reality. He believed it was going to be measurable and observable and all of those things. It's just that science hadn't reached the point where it could quantify and study it yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Betazoids, Star Trek.
Yes, right. So, and that's important, right? Because we got to be fair to him, right? And so, and this is important for understanding his relationship to Gnosticism, and not just Gnosticism, right? Before the Nag Hammadi Library was discovered, the largest collection of Gnostic texts we had was called the Jung Codex because he compiled it. But he was not just interested in Gnosticism. He was also interested in Hermeticism as a whole. He was interested in alchemy and wrote about it. But it's not that he believed in those things in the ancient or medieval senses. It's that he looked at those things sort of the way Averroes looked at Islam. Right. So if you don't know about Averroes looked at Islam as basically philosophy for dummies. So he's a Muslim living in a Muslim country, but he believed, okay, look, that fundamentally the Islamic religion for Averroes was trying to teach people who are not capable of understanding philosophy. And for him, that was specifically Aristotle's philosophy. They weren't equipped to understand it. Well, we'll communicate the basic truths and the basic ethics and these kind of things to people. And we're just going to say God told it to mom.
Yeah. So
right?
it's like, you know, these people that look at religions or, you know, various kinds of initiatory practices of the pre-modern world and try to come up with scientific ways of justifying them, like, oh, well, they were doing this and this, but it had this effect, this material effect, which they didn't know about, but they were able to manipulate it appropriately because of the things that they were doing, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Carl Jung, being a German of his era, right, believed that that these ancient people and medieval people were onto things regarding the collective unconscious, regarding all of the things that he was writing about, but they being more primitive, et cetera, were writing about them in these sort of religious and supernatural and weird ways because they didn't really understand them. But now he was scientifically describing them.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And so his scientific explanation was, of course, the reality that they were all gesturing at. Right. And so that's why he was interested in them. Right. He saw them as earlier primitive understandings of the same kind of phenomena he was dealing with. Right. So you can see, well, on one hand, right, and of course he's denying anything supernatural, but on one hand, he doesn't have, like Freud, ultimately dreams are just something happening inside a closed box, right? The box is open and stuff is coming into and out of the box from outside the box, from other boxes, right? Sort of other nodes on the neural net, right? But it's still not communication from an agentic being, a being with agency other than yourself.
Right.
Right. It wasn't that another human was telepathically sending thoughts to you, even. It was that there's this layer of consciousness below the primary layer at which all the minds are connected.
Yeah.
Right. But they all together form kind of a hive mind, an unconscious hive mind.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't like, and so it's still, while it's distinguishable from Freud very clearly in various ways, it's still within the category of everything is ultimately an internal process, at least internal to humans, to humanity as such. So then we get to the other pole, right, that we talked about, that being the kind of new agey view of dreams and dream interpretation. And of course, when we get into this, it gets a whole lot more nebulous, right? Because it's not like there's a systematic theology of new age movements.
Right.
Right. And when we talk about new age, like the new age I don't know if they still have new age sections at bookstores, but in the late 80s and into the 90s, there was a new age section at the bookstore. And that included everything from like Wiccan stuff to like UFO cults.
Oh, yeah.
And crystals and everything. It was just all this stuff thrown into a big bucket, right? So, you know, how do we even talk about that? So I have kind of chosen a representative book, right? And I've chosen it just based on popularity and sales, and the fact that it's directly related to dreams, and this is not a recommendation or an endorsement, obviously, but I'm using as an example here of sort of the core ideas at work here, Llewellyn's Complete Dictionary of Dreams. Okay. Which was compiled and edited by a guy whose name is not Llewellyn.
Oh.
Which is also strange.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe he channeled Llewellyn. Who knows? So this is again a very popular, well-known in New Age circles, guide to dream interpretation. Okay. And so this represents a good sort of general example of the kind of ideas you're dealing with in the New Age interpretation and understanding of dreams.
Llewellyn is the name of the publisher, by the way. So that's
there you go. That's where it comes from. Okay.
Yeah.
Why do I not know the name of New Age publishing houses? That's true.
I don't know, Father Stephen. This is a massive lacuna in your knowledge.
Yes.
I mean, come on.
And I have zero desire to go to Sedona and try and figure it out.
I've been to Sedona and, can confirm.
I have too. I have an aunt who got married in Sedona. Not a weird New Age thing, but that just happened to be.
Very pretty area for sure. Very pretty, but.
And I do have to say that particular wedding cake was like 85% brandy. And all us kids fell asleep in the car on the way home.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's and so basically, the idea is within this is that dreams are a communication to your conscious mind again, but from your higher self. Not yourself who has gotten high, but I can see why you would make that mistake, given the subject matter. But from your higher self, meaning, and this higher self is associated with the divine. So essentially, the self is divine. You're God, the basic New Agey thing, right? But it's also higher. This says this is you in the future. This is like you 2.0, right? The divine you, that you're the butterfly that you're going to blossom into at the end of all this, communicating back to you, primitive material you in the present day to help guide you toward itself. Okay. This is like that old sitcom Second Chance where Alex Rocco went into the past to try to teach his younger self, a young Matthew Perry, get him on the right track and not make the same mistakes. That is the most obscure reference I've made.
Oh.
Probably on this show. But I'm not going to go any further with it.
Okay.
I want to. I really want to, but I'm not going to.
Come back.
So you have this divine self that you're teleologically oriented toward. You're becoming this divine you, but divine you in the future is sending these messages back to you to help guide you to become that in your dreams. And so then interpreting the dreams is interpreting what is the guidance you're getting from this higher self. And so like in this dictionary, it's just piles of symbology, right? This represents that. This color represents that, right? This article of clothing represents that. But it's just taken from all over the place. So there's stuff they've taken out of Jung, but there's also stuff they've taken out of like ancient pagan stuff they've taken out of medieval stuff that who knows where they got it, that some guy made up, right? Like, just stuff, right? All just sort of piled together, right? And I'm sure, again, that's one book. I'm sure if you got a different book, maybe even from the same press, same New Age press, there'd be all different stuff, right? For the same symbols and everything, right? Because again, there's not like a systematic theology of New Age. But so that gives you at least an idea of the kind of approach you find to dreams in a New Age context. Well, what do all of these sort of modern approaches have in common? It's that for them, all dreams are dreams, right? That it's all the same thing, right? And it all exists purely on sort of the human plane. And God or angels, demons, pagan gods, all of that stuff is really out of the picture, because if you have dreams with any of those things in them, they're just representing something. Some part of yourself, some part of your higher self, some sublimated desire, some symbol or pattern from the collective unconscious, but they're not an actual being outside of you communicating with you. That's what they're not, right? The reality of the spiritual world is out of the picture, right? The spiritual world gets reduced to sort of mental processes of one kind or another. Right. And, the New Age will say it's spiritual, but that's a very loose use of the word spiritual. Right.
Yeah.
But the problem is with all these approaches then, based on those commonalities, is that all of those set human beings up for deception. Right. All of those set you up to misinterpret what's going on in your dreams, right? All of those ascribe whatever it is to, at best, this is just some working out of some primal desires you have that you're suppressing. At worst, this is communication from your higher self, and you should follow this advice because it's all leading you in a good direction. Right, when interpreted correctly, and leading you to make all kinds of bad choices, right? And if you think a demon doesn't know the contents of a book you're reading and can't throw you a dream to tell you to do all kinds of kooky stuff, if you're reading Llewellyn's Complete Dictionary of Dreams, I don't know who you're kidding, right? Like that's
right.
That's easy, right?
Yeah.
And so this is very early on in this show. I'm talking first few episodes. We talked about this, that knowledge of the material world, the technological knowledge that we've gained in the modern age is real. We can make microwaves, right? And microwaves are nice, right? And cars are nice, right? Plane travel is nice. Satellites are cool. Right. And all this stuff is real learning and real advancement and has some value, right? Like you're listening to this on the internet, right? So that's all well and good. We're not saying that's bad. We're not saying we need to all become, ancient people and go back to living the way they lived in 3000 BC, right? Or 2000 or 1000 or even the first century AD. But there was a trade-off that was made. And it wasn't made sort of consciously by any given person, but it was a trade-off that was made by societies and cultures to pursue that knowledge of the material world and the physical world wholeheartedly, right? Which produced all these advancements while neglecting the spiritual wisdom and spiritual knowledge that had been present in the ancient world. And so this is an area in terms of understanding dreams in which humanity is not only not progressed since the ancient world, but has actually kind of regressed. That modern people are actually less savvy about these kind of things than ancient people were, even though we're much more savvy about technological things and things about the material world, right? And so the goal of what we do on this show, and what the goal should be for all of us as people, is, again, not to retreat to try and become as if that were possible, right? But to reacquire the spiritual wisdom to go with and to guide our sort of material science and understanding and knowledge, right? It's not that one is good and one is bad. It's that one can run amok if you don't have the other. And the other, the spiritual wisdom, right, the knowledge of God, right, is far more important than the other.
Yeah. Well, here we are at the end of the third half. We actually just had someone in the YouTube chat say, could you guys wrap this up? I've got things I got to do. Well, we're wrapping it up, friend. This very much fits into the kind of a genre, and this is probably why AI suggested we should do this episode, Father, as you said at the beginning. This definitely fits into the genre of a kind of show that we do, which is we talk about something that a lot of people consider to be kind of out there. And we make the point of, okay, it's not actually out there, it's in here. And also, what do you do about all this? Well, you don't go crazy. You don't decide, I've got some kind of special revelation that's going to take me in a new direction, and everybody else that no one's ever heard of before. One of the things that we saw in the scriptures that we looked at was God warning the people of Israel that if prophets tell them stuff that's, saying they're having dreams, and that the conclusion is that they should go do something other than what God commanded them to do. God says not only don't listen to those prophets, but even, the death penalty is aimed at them. And of course, in our time, we actually have something worse than the death penalty within the church, and that's excommunication. And I think that, as you said, Father, the kind of spiritual wisdom that has been neglected in favor of the material wisdom that we now have has, opened us up to the possibility of being deceived because we don't know quite how to recognize spiritual experiences in the best possible way. And this connects with the question that the deacon was asking too, like, what's the, is it necessary? Is it good? Is it required to try to acquire, to reappropriate some of this wisdom? And I think it's definitely good. But we're not, utterly lost without it. We are where we are, but what we can do is receive one of the most basic pieces of wisdom about spiritual experiences, whether it's dreams or visions or miracles, that you see or whatever it might be. And that is that restraint and caution are the normal posture, right? We're so used to thinking and functioning in a materialist way that when we see something that is outside of those boundaries, we might potentially think that we're special. We might think, I have something I need to give the whole world here, that they all need this from me. But that is quite often can be deception for yourself, deception maybe for other people. A number of the stories from the Holy Fathers are about, a monk seeing what presents as an angel and saying, get out. And the conclusion always is it's better to tell an angel to get out than to unwittingly receive a demon because you're deceived and you don't know how to discern what's true and what's not, and what the true reality of things is. So I think that, number one, that caution is really an important, posture, I think, is the best way to describe it. It's the appropriate posture, is caution, restraint, to embrace the ordinary life, right? But also, if there's one message we're trying to convey with all of this too, is that, look, that spiritual experiences actually are normal. And maybe coming back to the point where we have some wisdom about these things, we're going to have to accept that they're normal again. That doesn't mean we need to go crazy about them, but that if we live as ordinary people and live with the ordinary faithfulness that Christ has given us and that the saints have demonstrated for us, that will place us in a position where we will have more discernment. The saints that are able to test the spirits and to occasionally do battle with evil spirits are saints that did the ordinary, everyday, sometimes very boring and difficult, repetitive practices of faithfulness that are the norm of Christian life: prayer, fasting, almsgiving, these basic things, these foundational things, these required things. It turns out that it's, once again, surprise, surprise, all about repentance. And the irony of the modern age is that in thinking that they could come up with a scientific explanation of a lot of these things, actually set us up not for greater knowledge, but for less knowledge. For less knowledge. It's an irony. Knowledge isn't always just increasing. Sometimes it's getting lost. And sometimes it's something that we shouldn't have forgotten, that we needed. And to me, one of the beautiful things about having this particular conversation is that, again, it opens up parts of the scripture that maybe sometimes we kind of don't know what to do with, or just sort of read past and don't really absorb it because we don't have a framework to absorb it. And so, God willing, with this conversation, we've extended the framework just a little bit so that as you read the whole of the scriptures, that more and more of it can lead you on to that faithfulness that Christ calls all of us to. So I'm grateful for this one. Thank you.
So one song that involves dreams that I'm not going to be quoting at the end of the episode is California Dreamin'. And as many of you listeners know, I grew up in Southern California. And so did my wife. My wife is from Orange County. And, you know, every so often somebody asks us, hey, do you ever want to go back to California? And we all immediately say no. Because, you know, I don't have to list all the issues with California currently. But that doesn't mean I'm sort of immune to the pull of, you know, the place I come from. And last night I was watching a live musical performance that just happened to be the place where I grew up. And I was thinking about, so there was this place out in Ventura. Ventura is sort of like northwest of Los Angeles. And I first went out there because I had a friend who lived in Thousand Oaks, which is sort of on the way out there. And there was an amazing comic book store in Ventura called Ralph's Comic Book Corner. And this was back in the day when they weren't like reprinting tons of old comics like they do now for old nostalgic guys like me. If you wanted to like read the stories and see the art from these classic stories back in the 50s and 60s, you had to go track it down one issue at a time somewhere out in the world. And Ralph's Comic Corner was like a gold mine for that. But a couple blocks away, there was this cafe. And if you could get out there, it was a drive, but if you could get out there in the morning or even lunchtime, that was hard to do because you had to go through the 101, 110 interchange, which is a nightmare if you've ever been to LA. But if you could get out there at that time, this cafe had the most amazing blueberry pancakes you could ever have in your life. I mean, fresh whole blueberries, pancake batter made from scratch, fresh brewed coffee. You could go and sit. They had outdoor seating. You could go and sit out there, and Ventura is near the coast. So you smell the ocean breeze, the salt air, eat those pancakes, drink that coffee. It's amazing. And I was thinking, man, what I wouldn't give to go back one more time and eat those pancakes and go dig for gold in the stacks at Ralph's. But Ralph's Comic Corner shut down a few years ago. That cafe is closed too. And one of the evidences that you're an old guy like me is that your dreams start being of the past. Your dreams start being about trying to recapture those kind of beautiful moments in the past that you remember and the joy you had. You want to go back and you want to recover it. And when you're a young person, which I used to be once, your dreams are all in the future. It's all these joys you imagine in the future when you meet that person and fall in love and get married and have kids and all the things, you know, you achieve what you want to achieve in your career. And you have all those things and they're out in the future. But what both of those have in common, regardless of whether you've crossed the Rubicon into dreaming about the past instead of the future now, is that none of them are in the present. None of them are aimed at finding the joys and the beauty and the good things that God has placed in my life right now today. They're aimed at a past that will never come again or a future that may never come to be, rather than the beauty of today. What God is doing, how he's revealing himself, what he's communicating to me today. So you can go tonight onto social media and quote Father Stephen DeYoung as saying, give up on your dreams. Whether it's the past or the future, let it go. Right? Live today. There is so much good and so many blessings available to you right now today, if you're willing to stop and see them and take advantage of them. And so that's what I wanted to say at the end of this episode. Give up on your dreams, because this is the day that the Lord has made. So let us rejoice and be glad in it.
Amen. Amen. Well, that's our show for tonight. Thank you for listening, everybody. If you didn't happen to get through to us live and give us a call, we'd still like to hear from you. You can send us an email, lordofspirits@ancientfaith.com. You can message us at our Facebook page. You can also leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/lordofspirits. And if you have basic questions about Orthodox Christianity, or you need help finding a parish, go to orthodoxintro.org.
And join us for our live broadcasts on the second and fourth Thursdays of the month at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. A candy-colored clown they call the Sandman tiptoes to my room every night.
If you're on Facebook, you can follow our page, you can join our discussion group, and you can leave reviews and ratings everywhere. But make sure that you share this show with a friend. And thanks, everyone who was in the YouTube chat tonight.
And finally, be sure to go to ancientfaith.com/support and help make sure we and lots of other AFR podcasters stay on the air. Just to sprinkle stardust and to whisper, go to sleep. Everything is all right.
Thank you. Good night. And may God bless you all.
You've been listening to The Lord of Spirits with Orthodox Christian priests, Father Andrew Stephen Damick and Father Stephen DeYoung, a listener-supported presentation of Ancient Faith Radio. And I beheld, and I heard the voice of many angels round about the throne, and the beasts, and the elders, and the number of them was 10,000 times 10,000, and thousands of thousands, saying with a loud voice, Worthy is the Lamb that was slain to receive power, and riches, and wisdom, and strength, and honor, and glory, and blessing. Revelation chapter 5, verses 11